Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was born as demon and became demon emperor of Purgatory movie. Before we start, please go support LOL World 345 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. In an alternate universe to that of the high school DxD and I'm and light novels, Issei was born to a demon couple in an ancient underworld where the war between demons and angels was still raging, the same event where God and the four original Mass were killed. This young man had to make his way through thousands of years in a devastated underworld that blamed him for being born, not without first suffering countless events that would mark him forever. The expected birth. War is one of the most powerful and horrific events that human beings are capable of witnessing. Being mere mortals, fragile and weak, prevents them from fully understanding the magnitude of war for those superior beings. The ground stained red with thousands of bodies bearing bat wings and other white wings, stained with blood from battle, not to mention piles of bodies with black wings. This was the war that humans could not comprehend, the war between angels, demons, and fallen angels. The reason for the war was a conflict that had always existed between these races. It's simple. The three races or factions have hated each other since their creation. They are all the antithesis of each other's ideals. They were created to be adversaries, and this has led only to destruction in the underworld, the heavens, and other mythical places that humans would consider pure fiction. Faced with this, each faction had its strongest warriors ready to give their lives if necessary. But setting aside all the death and destruction this entails, we find ourselves in a place far removed from the battle. In a castle, we see a demon couple. A man in silver armor covering his entire body except for his head, and his wife, who at that very moment was giving birth. Come on, love, you can do it. Just hold on a little longer. I can see his head. Ah, please come out, baby. While the couple was busy with their task, far away from them, a red light could be seen passing through the center of the battle, slicing through bodies and killing instantly. Its speed was incredible, and it was inexplicable how it could kill the powerful angels, demons, and fallen angels. After a few seconds, when the couple's baby finally emerged and the first ray of light reached its face, the light entered its body, giving off a small flash that the couple mistook for sunlight. He's beautiful. He's our son. The woman had tears of joy as she rested, and her husband held the baby and cleaned him. You were right, it is a boy. Of course it is, love, it's called maternal instinct. The man lay down next to his beloved, but not before performing all the necessary medical procedures so that his wife could rest safely. The couple smiled at the baby, whose eyes were obviously closed. So this is the new body. It's a baby, a stupid baby. The red light that had entered the baby's body had taken the form of a large dragon with red scales. Its eyes were green, and fire shot out of its mouth every time it opened. I'll have to rest here for now. Years passed, and the couple was known as some of the best warriors in the underworld. Their son inherited some of their abilities, though unfortunately, his parents couldn't spend much time with him. When they finally had some free time, they were either interrupted or needed to rest. Despite everything, the boy, named Issei, understood his parents' situation. Issei. I hope that someday, when this war is over, I can go out and play with my parents for a while. The boy was outside his house, gazing at the red sky of the underworld, thinking about his parents, when he noticed a magic circle form in the neighboring house. Curious, he peeked out to see. Issei. Ah, it's the neighbor. She's so lucky to be able to talk to her parents every day. The neighboring couple also had a family, but in this case, a daughter, a little girl with gray skin and blood-red eyes. She was usually feared by all the young demons her age, but Issei was only envious that she could spend quality time with her family. After all, her parents weren't as strong as his, and that's why they occasionally came to his house to spend time with their daughter. Issei. But I mustn't be sad. I must train so that one day I can be as strong as mom and dad. The boy ran into his house but was surprised to see the back door open. He decided to close it, but at that moment, a man with white wings grabbed him from behind and covered his mouth. Angel. I have the boy. What do I do now? The angel spoke through a magic circle and was surprised to hear the orders he was given. Angel. But sir, he's just a child. That's too much. Issei bit the angel's hand, but he didn't even flinch and continued speaking. Angel. I know it's a war, but killing a child is too much for me. We're supposed to be angels. We do what's right. I refuse to kill a child. The light appeared before them, revealing a man in golden armor with 12 pure white wings. Archangel. Sometimes sacrifices must be made, and this child possesses great magical power. If we don't kill him now, he'll be a threat in the future. Angel. And you have white wings with those thoughts. The archangel created a magic circle in his hand and fired in the child's direction, but the angel deflected the beam of light. Angel. Even we have our limits. I'm fed up with this war. Archangel. Then withdraw and leave the job to your superiors. Angel. I thought that being in heaven meant I was on the right side. Now I see that neither side is right. Archangel. Are you finished? The Archangel said a prayer and a divine sword appeared in his hands. Angel. Run, kid, as fast as you can, and don't turn around. Issei ran, but just as he was about to go out the door, he felt some kind of liquid stain his back. He didn't turn around, though. As he stepped outside, the Archangel crashed through the ceiling and knocked Issei down from the sky, leaving him on the ground. Archangel. Die, you damned spawn. The Archangel raised his sword, which was stained with his companion's blood, and pierced Issei's chest, splattering his blood everywhere. Hearing the screams of pain, the neighbors came out to see what was happening and, horrified, began attacking the Archangel, who was trying to kill them too. Meanwhile, Issei saw a magic circle open in the red sky, and his parents emerged from it. Issei. Issei. Issei's mother flew to him and hugged him tightly. His father went straight to fight the Archangel and managed to save his neighbors from certain death. Issei. Hang on, you'll be alright, please hang on. Issei's mother began using all sorts of healing spells, but none of them could heal the gaping wound. Issei. This place was supposed to be protected so the children would be safe. Archangel. No place will save you demons from being eliminated. You are a latent evil for everyone. Before they could resume their battle, a loud explosion was heard and the Archangel stopped. Archangel. You've finally arrived. At last, we can wipe out all the demons from your central city. You will die and your sins will be forgiven. The Archangel charged at Issei's father, but with a hateful glare, he created a magic circle from which a great flash of red light completely enveloped the Archangel's body. When it disappeared, not even ashes remained. Issei's father quickly went to his wife, who was hugging her son and crying loudly. Father Issei. We can still save him. We must take him to the mass. Before they could get up, a rift opened, revealing a divine white light in the sky. A man's body emerged from it, his face shrouded in the same divine light. Father Issei. Is that God? Mr. Issei. We have to get to the capital quickly. Issei's father and his wife flew swiftly to the castle where the four mass lived, but they weren't there. In fact, all of hell was in chaos. The three factions were clashing everywhere. Every second, an angel, demon, or fallen angel fell, and heaven and hell began to merge as the battle reached a new level. God fought fiercely against the four mass, and unfortunately, poor young Issei died in his mother's arms. The fight raged for a year, with everyone fighting for survival. The numbers of the three factions plummeted to stratospheric levels, and finally, the war ended with a massive explosion that separated heaven and hell once more, resulting in the deaths of the four mass and God. Few knew of their demise, as they were the pillars of angels and demons due to their respective races. Faced with this, it was inevitable that the few surviving angels, demons, and fallen angels would sign a peace treaty, seeing that the population had declined drastically due to the war. A year after the war ended, a red light shone intensely from beneath the earth, and the body of that child emerged, the wound throbbing in his chest. Why can't I leave this wretched body? He died a year ago. This is overwhelming. The body remained there for a few hours, until the grey-eyed girl noticed that the body of her friend, who had died a year ago, was back in the courtyard of his old house. She quickly alerted her parents, who were among the demons who had managed to survive, and the three of them took him to the new mass. Seeing that the boy's wound was practically open, they decided to find a way to heal him to see if he held any important information, since they kept records of all the affected families and demons. Upon discovering that he belonged to two of their best warriors before the conflict ended, they dedicated considerable time to trying to heal him. Meanwhile, the fact that the body had returned was considered confidential information, and it was hidden in the castle, which was being rebuilt, in a deep dungeon. Each day, a different Mayu took turns checking to see if everything was alright. 2 months passed, and on one of his many visits, one of the four mass went downstairs, but couldn't find the young man's body anywhere. He was a little alarmed, but smelling fresh blood and seeing drops on the ground, he followed the trail until he noticed 2 flames that were drastically changing color. Mayu. What is that? As he tried to grab one of the 2 flames, the figure turned around, revealing a skeleton engulfed in flames that flickered through a multitude of colors. The silhouette held him with its burning hands, leaving only the skeleton visible. The Mayu quickly pushed the figure away, but was shocked to see the fire spread rapidly across its body, despite its metal armor, which was supposed to make it fire resistant. Mayu. This is not normal at all. Issei. Help me. Mayu. Are you a child? The Mayu picked up the child by the parts that weren't burning and carried him to the others. He placed him on a table, and the 4 tried all sorts of spells, but nothing worked. They threw the child into a well filled with water, but it was ineffective. Mayu. We must seek help from someone else. Mayu 2. Perhaps we can call upon an angel or a fallen angel. Mayu 3. If we do that, first I'll have to warn everyone and prepare everything. The fourth and I will go and get help from the other factions. Even the Asgardians or vampires will be helpful. Now. Good, then the second and I will prepare everything to take the child. The Mayu placed the child on a table and went to do what they were supposed to do. Moments after they left, a hole opened beside them and a claw emerged, grabbing the child by the neck and pulling him away, disappearing from the place without a trace. Now 4. So this child was the one the archangels were looking for. Why? Issei tried to break free, but the Mayu created silver chains and bound his feet, hands, and neck. Now 4. He'll be useful for my experiments. Walk. I don't intend to carry you. The Mayu pulled on the chains, but Issei refused to go any further. He held the collar around his neck and it began to melt. Now 4. Impossible. It's made of the highest quality iron possible. It's supposed to only be damaged after 10,000 years of use. Issei managed to melt the metal of the chains, but the Mayu sank his claws into his stomach and a pool of blood formed on the ground. The fire began to slowly die down, so the Mayu quickly took him to a kind of bunker hidden in the human world and, once there, healed his wound even though he was unconscious. Now 4. The fire reignites. It seems the intensity of the flame is linked to his life force. I have to do more experiments and take notes. Finally, a test subject worthy of my intellect. After several days of searching throughout the underworld, the sky, and some Nordic territories, as well as parts of the human world where supernatural creatures hid, like a castle in Germany, the Mayu failed to find the boy. Mayu. It's impossible. We searched everywhere possible. Mayu 2. What if he escaped? Mayu 3. I don't think so. If he had tried, the table would have exploded. I cast that spell. Mayu 4. Are you crazy? You could have killed him. Mayu 3. It doesn't matter now. It's out of our hands. We'll continue the search, but we must focus on higher level problems now. We have a lot to do. Mayu. So this will take a back seat. Mayu 3. It's the best option. Mayu 2. Good. We have to go back to the underworld. Months and years passed, and the fourth demon lord quenched his thirst for knowledge and torture with the poor boy, whose gaze grew increasingly empty. He had endured all manner of experiments at the hands of the fourth demon lord, for though he longed to escape, the boy was smarter and stronger. He suffered so much that, to protect him from further psychological damage, his body developed severe amnesia, erasing all memories of his parents and friends. He only remembered that dark room filled with instruments that tormented him daily. But it wasn't just that. He didn't eat or drink, so he had to consume and drink his own excrement to survive. The experiments grew increasingly painful, leaving him utterly exhausted. His body was covered in scars, and one of his organs had even collapsed from the damage, requiring a transplant from the fourth demon lord. He was chained like an animal in a cage, his fire growing weaker with each passing moment. Demon Lord 4. Well, where shall we begin today? The Demon Lord put on gloves and grabbed Issei by the jaw. Issei simply let him do whatever he wanted with his body. After all, it would end his suffering faster. Another 10 years passed, during which Issei was in horrific condition. He was covered in mold, severely malnourished, and the fire on his hands and head was gone. He no longer responded to words and was simply used as a way for the Demon Lord to dispose of trash. Desperate for food, he would crawl over and eat whatever the Demon Lord threw away. One day, the Mayu saw that the young man's body had stopped beating, so he left the bunker and went to find something to dispose of the body. Unfortunately for him, Issei got up and with the very little strength he had been saving up these past few days, doing absolutely nothing but resting, he destroyed the collar with his very thin arms and crawled to a detoxification booth. Issei's condition was so serious that the Mayu was forced to set up a machine to cleanse all the contaminants in the human body, using very powerful jet showers with a high-level detoxification spell. The reason for this was that it was faster for him and didn't waste energy. Issei approached the machine and turned it on, then entered. Machine. Critical state of toxins. The estimated detoxification time is 1 hour and 50 minutes at maximum power, including the use of reserves. Issei simply pressed the green button he could see blurrily and leaned against the glass wall as the process continued. When it finished, he no longer looked so emaciated and he even had to open his mouth so the machine could clean his insides. Issei removed his only garment and threw it away with very little force, then left the bunker as best he could. Once outside, he walked forward for a couple of kilometers until he fainted in the middle of a river and the strong current swept him away. Mayu 4. I finally found a fairly large blowtorch. The Mayu was arriving when he noticed the door was open and quickly entered, only to find nothing. Mayu 4. He can't be far. I have to find him. The Mayu flew, avoiding all human contact, but he couldn't find any trace of Issei, so he had to maintain appearances and go to his job as a Mayu. On the other hand, Issei arrived at a small cabin where an elderly couple found him lying nearby and took him in. They dressed him, though none of the clothes fit him properly due to his condition. When he woke up a few hours later and left the room, he saw the couple eating peacefully. The man stood up and approached him. "Old man. I see you're in a bad way, young man. My wife and I pulled you out of the lake naked and in a pretty sorry state, to be honest. I don't usually let strangers in, but seeing you like this made me feel sorry for you. Would you like to eat?" Issei. Ah. Issei couldn't speak because he had forgotten how, so he just nodded. He sat down at the side of the table and began to eat like an animal, though the old woman stopped him. "Old woman. You shouldn't eat like that. I know you must need a lot of food and energy, but everything in its own time. Otherwise, you could die from going from this state to something a little healthier in such a short time. Besides, food is meant to be enjoyed. Here's a fork and knife for the meat and chopsticks for the noodles." Issei fearfully took the utensils and bowed his head, thanking the old woman. The three of them ate peacefully, and Issei fell asleep again, exhausted. "Old man. It's surprising how badly some people are suffering, isn't it, love?" Old woman. "Yes, and from what I can see, he can't speak. Perhaps we should teach him." Old man. "It's not normal for someone his age not to know how to speak, perhaps he's mute." Old woman. "Seeing him in that state, I doubt anyone taught him as a child. I know it's not the wisest thing to do, but we must take care of him, old man." Old man. "Yes, I know. He's a young man of about 18 or 19. Let's do it." And so time passed and Issei, as the years went by, regained his health and was able to speak again thanks to his new parents, or so he called them. When he finally learned to speak and write clearly, which didn't take him long to learn, the elders asked him how he got there, so he made up a story. Not only did he reappear as an ordinary person, but he also began to exercise and improved his physical condition over the months, thanks to his demonic blood. The time came to say goodbye, and the elders gave him provisions for his journey to other places, but he went to the bunker from which he had escaped. Upon arriving, he saw that nature was doing its work, and flowers were now growing on top of it. Issei plucked them and ripped open the door. He had been holding back the whole time, knowing he possessed immense strength, though he didn't know how or why. He had also learned to control the flames that had reappeared, using a little of his willpower, so as not to frighten his saviors. Inside, he saw that the place was full of dust and thoroughly investigated it, finding very useful things like books with magic spells and defense and attack techniques. He took most of the books to read and put what was written into practice. Issei. "Okay, that's enough. I need to get out of here and train. I plan to kill that son of a bitch with my own hands and make him pay for everything he did to me and for what he may not even remember doing." Issei left the bunker and for 10 years put the knowledge from the books into practice. He also realized he was of demonic race when he saw that he could summon magic circles with a little concentration, and it became a hobby for him. Because of this, he decided to travel the human world looking for masters of all kinds of martial arts or fighting styles he could find. For the first time, he was in a civilized world with more people, and he asked them about the best masters. And so his journey in the human world lasted 100 years without acquiring a single gray hair. He saw 2 of his masters die in his arms, but for some reason, he felt neither pity nor sorrow. Issei. "I'm heartless. I wish I could care about someone or something, but all I think about is learning to fight or learning to cast more powerful spells or magic incantations. I've been traveling the world for 100 years. I should return to the underworld. After all, I've learned most of the martial arts, and considering my strength, which I haven't put to much use, it would be a good option." Issei stood up and summoned a magic circle, appearing in the underworld. Upon arriving, the first thing he did before searching for the culprit of the greatest suffering in his life was to go to the capital. He managed to do this by asking the demons he encountered along the way, as well as the half-demons humans who had made a contract with a demon and acquired certain characteristics of them. Issei. "Well, here we are. I don't feel entirely prepared, but what does it matter?" Issei arrived in the capital and went to the castle where the 4 current masts lived, wondering what he was going to do. After all, if he wanted revenge on the one who had been his biggest pain in the neck for most of his life, he needed a plan. Higher power. Issei was on his way to the castle of the 4 demon lords when he sensed an incredibly powerful presence, which caused him to veer quite far from his destination. For some reason, he felt a need to follow that tremendous power and found himself on the outskirts of the capital in a kind of desert. He saw a corpse holding a sword, so he ripped it from the body and saw that it was quite rusty. Not caring much, he set it aside and continued walking until he found a cave. Upon entering, a small tremor occurred, causing small stones to fall that shattered upon contact with Issei. As night approached and darkness enveloped the cave, Issei used his powers to illuminate it, finding several skeletons arranged in a circle with a key in the center. Issei. "Has no one ever found this place before?" Issei touched the key and it turned to ash. Issei. That was to be expected. For some reason, my fire can melt anything in seconds. Issei was about to leave when he noticed the skeletons began to move, rotating faster and faster, until a small explosion brought down what appeared to be a wall. Issei brushed some sand off himself and went inside, noticing torches with blue flames. Although he hadn't realized it, the flames changed from red hot to a light blue that gradually intensified. His hands were light blue, and the flames at the top of his head were a deep blue, almost black. Yet, for some reason, his skull remained black regardless of the color. He continued walking along a path littered with bones of all kinds, from dragon wings to skulls with perforations that looked like they'd been made by a sword. At one point, he stopped and saw a rather strange symbol on a crystal sphere. He smashed the sphere, and the place became even brighter. He put a hand up to his eyes, and when he removed it, he realized he was in a kind of fountain where baby dragons were swimming peacefully. Issei. What is this supposed to be? Guardian. I can answer that. Issei turned around and behind him was a stone armor about 5 meters tall, holding a sword that was stuck in the ground about 4.8 meters long. Issei looked at the statue curiously until it began to move and brought its helmet closer to him. Issei. There's nothing inside you. Guardian. I am the guardian of the dragons. I was created to give them eternal rest and protection when their time to depart has come. Issei. And why am I here? Guardian. Only the wielders of the Sekiryuutei and the Hakuryuku can come without having died beforehand, although of course when they come, they will have to decide whether to come here or to heaven and hell. Issei. But heaven and hell are places that already exist. Guardian. Not in that way. I mean the highest point in heaven where only those who have perished can enter, or in the case of hell or the underworld, the lowest point, Purgatory. Issei. Purgatory is used to purify the souls of those who can ascend to heaven and cleanse their sins. Guardian. I see you know a lot. Issei. I stole some books from Amayu and learned quite a bit, although I don't know how strong I am, but I heard you say bear. Guardian. Exactly. A legendary dragon, the Sekiryuutei, or known to few as Drag, rests in your soul. Issei. I think you've mistaken me for someone else. Guardian. You sensed the power of the sphere and you entered here. I would only be mistaken if you were the bearer of the Hakuryuku, but otherwise, there's no mistake. No being other than a dragon or the bearer of a sacred gear with a dragon's soul within it can enter. Issei. That can't be possible. I trained for so long in the best martial arts in the human world, and I even managed to master my own power. You must be mistaken. Guardian. Let me enter your memories so we can see when the dragon entered you. Issei. Fine, although there are some very unpleasant things. The Guardian placed a finger on Issei's forehead and began to see all his memories, astonished by all the traumas he had suffered and wondering how he had survived them until he reached the moment of his birth. Guardian. I see, that's why. You were just a baby, in fact, you had just been born. Issei. I don't remember anything from when I was about 20 or 30 years old. Guardian. I could sense it. Those memories were encapsulated or sealed away, but that's no problem for me. That barrier doesn't stop me, unlike you. Issei. So a dragon lives inside me. How ironic. But what am I doing here? Guardian. Well, some took advantage of the opportunity to train here while I was their teacher. It might be useful for you. Issei. Sounds interesting. How long will this training last? Guardian. About 100 years. Issei. Ah, another 100 years. Guardian. You're a demon. You can live eternally without worries. You're about 120 or 130 years old and you look like a 22-year-old human. Issei. I know. Demons age very slowly, although some aren't so lucky. Guardian. So, you accept me as your teacher? Issei. Ah, alright, Guardian. Teach me. Guardian. Good. First of all, we'll train your body. It will be difficult, so prepare yourself. And so began another training for Issei, only this time the Guardian demanded he use his true form, that of a flaming skeleton. For some reason, in that place, his fire turned white. The training began, and the Guardian made sure to create one of his greatest creations in terms of power. He not only taught him to use weapons like heavy swords and the art of fencing, but also taught him fighting techniques and gave him sacred books that only the wielders of the 2 heavenly dragons were allowed to read and know. Although that didn't mean it would be easy to understand and master the techniques, so he spent a large part of the training reading and putting into practice the power of the dragon within him, which he began to understand little by little after 10 years. After 50 years of training, Issei's fire was so powerful that his clothes burned in a single second and the Guardian had to create a new set specifically for him. Guardian. Take the garments. I'm surprised your fire is so powerful. It's even stronger than the Phoenix's. Issei. Well, I've been combining my power with dregs to make it this powerful, but I still need to train. Guardian. Plenty of practice. It's time for experience. Issei. You want me to return to my world to fight? Guardian. No. I'll create smaller, increasingly difficult versions of myself and you'll have to defeat them all, one per day. Issei. Okay, sounds interesting. Issei put on his new clothes and decided he would create the most powerful ones with his own energy so they wouldn't burn. The first 1000 battles were far too easy for him. The fact that he had trained in the human world against his masters had paid off and he could be considered an unstoppable machine. But, as usual, each fight involved different weapons or equipment. Sometimes this put him at a disadvantage, but it ultimately paid off. As a result, by the year 70, Issei had written a book about his own powers and the combined techniques he had created, and he kept it as a sacred book that the Guardian would protect. For the next 30 years, he perfected each of the techniques he had learned, and on the last day, he stopped to speak with the Guardian. Guardian. You truly are a demon. Although I've never met such a powerful demon, I dedicated myself to making you my masterpiece, and I believe I have succeeded. Issei. Well, it was a tough 100 years. Guardian. Your power far surpasses that of the mass and other beings considered all-powerful. Issei. And how much power do you have? Guardian. My power is finite. It grows every instant, so I have no limit, but I can be defeated. Remember, even if you have great power, it doesn't mean you're invincible. Issei. Everything varies. There may be people physically stronger than me, but technique, intelligence, agility, strength, knowledge, and so on are key, along with practice. Guardian. Excellent, you learned very well. I have to admit that you can be considered one of the most powerful beings, without a doubt, and all with training and effort. You can certainly be an incredible role model for self-improvement. Issei. I know, but I don't want to use all my power all the time. I'll use a seal. Guardian. You're going to seal your own power. Issei. I'll seal it in stages. Depending on my enemy's strength, that's how much power I can use against them. Guardian. So that it's a balanced and fair fight and the one who performs best and knows how to fight wins. I like the way you think. Issei. Yes, so I'll do that today, and tomorrow I'll leave. Guardian. You can return whenever you want or visit the dragons. After all, you learned a lot from them in these 100 years, and whether you like it or not, you are one of them. The way Issei sealed his power in stages was as follows. Stage 1. This is his lowest power. It is his human form without any magical powers or abilities. Stage 2. Prepared for combat, his fire is somewhat low, and he can only use a very limited amount of all his abilities. Stage 3. The fire is red hot, and he can use 20% of the abilities he knows. He can also regenerate wounds with draconic breath. Stage 4. His fire is blue, and everything around him has a very hostile temperature. His empty fists can intimidate almost any enemy. Phase 5. His power easily surpasses that of a Mao. Anyone who approaches him without being a worthy opponent is consumed by flames and reduced to ashes in seconds. His fire is white, and he can use 60% of the techniques he knows. Phase 6. Simply sensing his presence means a glorious battle is imminent. His fire is black, and his skull and bones are now white, unlike his previous versions which were black. Phase 7. Contrary to what one might expect, in this phase he has the appearance of a simple human, but with the difference that his eyes are slanted like those of a reptile. Every time he exhales, fire erupts from his mouth, capable of melting iron or armor in a few seconds. He can use 90% of the techniques he knows. Phase 8. His power in its purest and most perfect state, the fire this time constantly alternates between all the aforementioned colors and more. He can use all the techniques he knows and can also wield a sacred sword created by the guardian of the dragons and blessed by him. If anyone other than him tries to wield it without his consent, they will burn for all eternity, even if they die. There is no way to extinguish his fire unless he wills it. In this state, he could defeat and survive against any enemy unless that enemy is more skilled than him. Issei awoke and saw that he was now a simple human. He said goodbye to the guardian and left that place, remaining where he had been, only now a few flowers could be seen. Issei. How strange, we're in the desert, but it's quite beautiful. Well, it's time to exact my revenge. Issei left the area, walked a short distance, and noticed that a considerable amount of time had passed, as the castle now appeared larger, and some things, like houses and people, had changed considerably. He walked to the castle entrance where a guard asked for his identification. Issei. I thought any civilian could enter. Guard. Yes, but there's an important event happening right now, so you'd better come back another day if you don't have ID. Issei turned around, pretending to leave, but after taking a single step, he turned and punched the guard in the face. He grabbed the guard's right arm by the wrist, twisted it, and threw him to the ground, using his body as a platform to make him fall in front of him. Before he could fully get up, Issei kneed him, knocking him out instantly. Issei. Imbecile. Issei entered the castle and saw the four mass seated while a tournament was underway. Issei. Rating game, huh? Issei infiltrated the crowd, blending in as just another spectator. Issei. So the ID was the purchase receipt. Issei watched the young demons fight for a few minutes and felt embarrassed and pitied for how they fought. Issei. Enough wasting time, it's time to do what I intend. Issei managed to sneak into the main hall, where some of the most important pureblood demons and the Mau were gathered. He recognized four symbols. The Gremory clan, the Phoenix clan, the Bale clan, and the Citri clan. Standing before each symbol was a man who appeared to be the highest authority of that clan. One of the guards tried to stop him, but Issei grabbed his arm, positioned himself behind him, and snapped his neck in 3 seconds. Issei silently stood there, glaring hatefully at the fourth Mau, and placed a hand on his shoulder. The Mau turned, surprised, and saw Issei's forced smile. It took him a few seconds to react, and when he did, he stood up abruptly. Mau 4. You. Issei. I'm lucky you're still alive. You know, I don't remember much, but thanks to the Guardian of the Dragons, I know you kidnapped me, you damn son of a bitch. You wanted my power, but since you couldn't have it, you decided to torture me for so long. You didn't think I'd come back, did you? Mau. Who are you, you wretch? Issei. Hi do Issei, and don't raise your voice at me. Mau 3. Hi do. You disappeared about 200 years ago. We thought you were dead. Issei. I don't blame you. This bastard locked me in a bunker in the human world. At that time, I wasn't a match for him. Mau 2. Is that true, fourth? Mau 4. You believe him. Mau. I don't trust you. If it's true, you'll suffer. Mau 4. I'm the strongest of us. I could kill him if I wanted. The men from the four factions simply stepped back and watched the 5 men argue for a few moments. Mau 3. I'm going to kill you. He's the son of what was once one of the greatest warrior couples. You're a bastard. The fourth Mau was about to attack when a burst of fire threw him into the arena where the raiding game was taking place, but a protective barrier prevented him from landing among the participants. Issei. I'll take care of it. The Mau, like the four faction members, watched in surprise as a walking skull strode across the mat, leaving trails of ash with every step. Issei jumped and landed in front of the fourth Mau. The Mau got up and saw that his fire was blue. Mau 4. You're not and never will be a match for me. I am a Mau. The Mau removed his robe and attempted to strike Issei, but Issei blocked the attack and delivered a shin kick. He grabbed Issei by the neck with one hand and lifted him into the air. The Mau began firing several beams of demonic power that exploded in Issei's face, but Issei remained unfazed. Issei viciously punched the Mau in the face, causing cuts to his nose and other wounds, before hurling him against a wall. The demons watched in astonishment as the strongest of the Mau was easily defeated. Mau 4. I've never seen such power. Issei. We're just getting started, bastard. Issei crossed his forearms in the shape of an X, and a flame took hold of the shape. Issei caught it and threw it at the Mau. The Mau created a shield, but it was instantly destroyed, so he quickly ducked. When the Mau struck the wall, a whirlwind of blue fire erupted for about 10 seconds before disappearing. Mau. Impossible. The Mau stared in terror at the size of the whirlwind, so vast it seemed to stretch as far as the eye could see. Issei, bewildered, walked toward him and drew a sword. Its blade ignited with a blue flame, severing the Mau's arm. The Mau writhed in pain, clutching his shoulder. He turned to face Issei and cast a spell, crushing rocks that immobilized him. The rocks then flew in all directions. Issei. I wish I could savor your death longer, but I'm tired of seeing you. The Mau rose and, with his one remaining hand, attempted to create an arrow of demonic power, but Issei severed his hand in the process. Mau. Ah. Issei sheathed his sword, and a chain connected to a flaming blade appeared in his hands. Issei jammed the blade into the man's mouth and dragged him to the very top of the castle, under the watchful eyes of everyone. He hung him there, and before killing him, with his right hand, he ripped out his large and small intestines, throwing them to the ground. Issei. Now die. The Mau tried to scream for mercy, but a flame erupted from Issei's bony jaw, burning him completely to ash. The 3 Mau watched in terror, thinking they would be next as Issei descended toward them. But contrary to their expectations, the blue flame vanished, revealing a man of about 24 or 26 years of age in human years. Issei. I know it was grotesque, but he deserved it. Mau. What do you want? Issei. I'd like to know if any of you could help me. Mau 3. What do you want to know? Issei. I need a property. Mau 2. You want a plot of land? Issei. Yes, but a small one for a house. After all, I don't have any money. Now. Are you sure that's all you want? Issei. Yes, and if possible, I wish they wouldn't hunt me down like a criminal. After all, I killed one of their own. Now 3. Don't worry about that. If everything you say is true, then there won't be a problem. Issei. Well then, see you soon. Issei left the place, noticing that the 4 men had serious looks on him. He didn't care and simply left the castle in his human form and walked through the capital while all the demons stared in astonishment at the corpse of the 4th Mao. As he left the capital, a magic circle formed in front of him and a man with a serious expression stepped out of it. Issei. And who are you? Unknown. That doesn't matter. You killed the 4th, didn't you? Issei. Any problem? Unknown. He was my teacher. The man was about to strike Issei, but Issei simply dodged the attack and countered with a direct punch to the stomach. The stranger held him briefly and got back to his feet a few seconds later, only to receive a blow that sent him sprawling to the ground. He wiped some blood from his mouth and stood up again, but now he noticed Issei's expression was one of disgust. Issei. You're too weak. If you saw what I did to your master, you should have left. Stranger. I will honor his legacy. Issei. What legacy? Issei approached the man, who tried to attack him again. Issei caught the fist with both hands, pulled him toward himself with one, and when he was close enough, struck him with his other arm, breaking his nose with his elbow. The man covered his nose with his free hand, but after that, Issei bent his arm so far that he fell to one knee. Issei. What do you want, me to cut it or break it? Unknown. Damn it. Issei just struck again with his elbow, this time on the man's bent forearm, breaking the bone. The man writhed on the ground, and the bone could be seen protruding from the flesh. Issei. Good, now we mustn't leave any evidence, right? Issei created a magic circle from which a burst of energy shot out, making the man disappear. Issei. I'm pretty good at fighting. I should make money from this. It wouldn't be a bad option. Or maybe join an armed force. No, that would mean giving my loyalty to someone, and I don't want to do that. Issei waited a few days in a village far from the capital until a message arrived from a subordinate. The mass had obtained a small, empty territory in his name on the outskirts of the capital, somewhat far from the village he was in, but near the castle. Issei. They do all this so I don't harm them. Issei decided to use a magic circle on the specified area and saw that it was a plot of land surrounded by wooden fences with tall grass and quite a few trees. Issei. Well, then I'll have to build my own house. That's what I get for not being specific. Issei went to a weapons shop and threatened the shopkeeper into selling him all sorts of building tools. After all, he wasn't going to cut down trees with a sword. He wasn't going to waste its edge on that, even if he could repair it. From the man, he got several axes, building materials like logs to use as models for the others, some kind of liquid to glue the logs together, a couple of ropes, and other things. Issei. I might come back for more later. When I have money, I'll pay you. For now, sorry. Issei arrived at the property and cut down a small section of the trees, not very large, since he didn't want to get rid of them all. He began cutting the leaves with a hoe to clear the path and laid stones he found there to form a walkway. He trimmed the trees he felled with the same axe so they would be the same size as the ones the man had lent him. He left the leftover wood scattered around to see what he would use it for later. A month passed and Issei had finished building the house. He even managed to replace the wooden fences with stone walls with the help of the mass, who got him everything he needed. In fact, the walls were already built. They just had to put them up. When he finished, Issei made some furniture with the remaining wood and a bed frame, but he didn't have anything comfortable to rest on. Issei. These past few days I've had to hunt animals for food. I have to work at something. Issei left his house and began looking for work to earn money at various places and found a food stall where a woman worked. Issei. Excuse me, I saw you need an assistant. How much is the pay? Woman. First, I need to see your cooking skills, young man. Issei. Oh, no problem. Thank goodness my human mother taught me to cook exquisitely. The woman asked Issei to make meat covered in a kind of sauce, accompanied by rice and some bread. Issei managed to do it quickly and perfectly with all the ingredients the woman had on hand, and instead of using the stone oven, he used his fire breath to heat the food to the exact point without burning it. Woman. It's exquisite. You're hired. Issei. Well, this is better than not eating or earning any money at all. I guess I'll work here for a while. Rescue. Time passed and Issei worked as that woman's assistant for a full year, earning some money and paying her back for the materials he had stolen from the man. Right now, he was at home, sitting in a wooden chair, watching the head of a rapist he had recently killed burn. That's right, for a year he wouldn't just be focusing on working as a cook. Some time ago, he was taking a quiet walk one night to clear his mind when he heard a woman's cries for help. He went to investigate and what he saw made his blood boil with rage. A man was trying to abuse a little girl, so he approached and grabbed her shoulder. The man turned around in fear, thinking Issei was an authority figure, but when he saw the burning flames from Issei, he could only scream before being incinerated alive. Issei saw that the girl was terrified, so he extinguished the flames and picked her up. He asked her where she lived and took her to a somewhat poor house where there were other men and women. He immediately noticed that none of them were his relatives. Instead, it was an abandoned house that several people had adopted as their home. Issei simply left the girl under the watchful eyes of all the adults and proceeded to leave. From that day on, he began to take justice into his own hands, killing all kinds of bad people, from thieves to murderers and rapists, earning a reputation as a vigilante, although he never liked it. This led to his being nicknamed the Demon of Purgatory, since when he killed someone of that type, he would always say, "Your sins will be atoned for," and then kill them in the most brutal way possible. Sometimes he enjoyed seeing them suffer, so he would torture them a little. Right now, he was sitting enjoying watching the head of that damn demon burn when someone knocked on his door. He got up and found himself face to face with a man with long hair that reached his back. His eyes were blue with a serious expression, and several scars could be seen on his face, such as his lip and eyebrow, but what stood out most was his red hair. Issei. You were there the day I killed the fourth Mayu in the raiding game, from the Gremory clan, right? Atsushi. That's right, I'm Atsushi Gremory, and I've come to make you an offer. Issei. Fine, come in. Issei stepped aside and let the man, who was discreetly observing the house, enter. He sat on a sofa next to Issei's favorite wooden chair, and Issei closed the door to sit where he had been before. Atsushi. Is that a head? Pointing to the campfire. Issei. Yes, it was from a man who tried to rape a young woman, but anyway, what's your offer? Atsushi. I want you to be part of my clan, a relative of mine, or if possible, someone in my entourage. Issei. No. Atsushi. You didn't let me finish. You'll have every possible benefit. Issei. I don't care. The other 3 clans already came with the same offer, but no thanks. Besides, they're not the only ones here. Other clans are being a nuisance all the time. Atsushi. I see, but I need someone with your strength. Issei. Train. You know, I don't want to ruin my afternoon, so if that's all you came for, I'll have to ask you to leave. Atsushi. I'm not leaving here empty-handed. Issei. He's quite arrogant and an idiot. Atsushi glared angrily at Issei, who opened the door cordially. Atsushi. I already told you I won't leave here unless you join my clan. Issei. Fine, if that's the case. Atsushi created a magic circle as Issei closed the door and a red beam struck him from behind, destroying a wall of his house. Issei stood up angrily, his fire form manifesting with its characteristic blue hue. He turned to face the Gremory, who created more magic circles from which red beams shot out, striking Issei's body. Undeterred, Issei created a fire axe and hurled it at his rival. Atsushi ducked and caught the axe, burning himself in the process, but threw it back at Issei, who let it hit him. The axe lodged in his chest before dissolving. Issei charged at Atsushi, and Atsushi charged at him. As they stood close, Issei struck Atsushi with an open hand in the center of his chest, knocking the wind out of him. Atsushi clutched the area of the blow with his right hand, but Issei seized the opportunity and delivered a powerful blow. Atsushi struck his opponent in the jaw without moving much, managing to throw him back about 2 meters. Atsushi was getting back up when Issei grabbed him by the shoulders and threw him against the wall and began to brutally punch him with his closed fists from the abdomen upwards. After a few seconds, Atsushi grabbed one of Issei's fists and with his other hand created a magic circle from which an explosion managed to stun Issei. Issei raised his head, but Atsushi created a red power ball with lightning inside and threw it at him, creating an explosion that destroyed the entire area and more, sending them both flying. Atsushi got up from the ground and saw the demons watching the scene in disbelief, but unfortunately for him, Issei was behind him and strangled him with a chain. Atsushi tried to break free, but Issei kicked his knee from behind, forcing him to balance on one knee. Then he released the chain and took a step back, only to kick Atsushi hard in the back of the neck, leaving him injured on the ground. Atsushi looked up briefly, but Issei stomped on his face, burying him in the ground. He then grabbed the chain and dragged him across the ground until he was hanging from a post. He drew the same sword he had used to kill the Mayu, and just as he was about to slice him in half, a burst of flame pushed him back a few meters, but it didn't bring him down. Enough. Issei. You again, you bird brain. Die. I am Dai Phoenix, and you must stop this nonsense. Atsushi. What are you doing here? As he frees himself from the chains. Die. Saving you, idiot. Issei. If you both want to die here, fine by me. Die. Let's talk. Issei. There was already a chance to talk when he attacked me, now. Issei sheathed his sword and threw a small flame to the ground, creating a shape. Die. What's that? Issei. A small gadget I got in the human world, but improved. It's a firearm. They call it a blunderbuss. From it emerged a wooden pistol engulfed in blue flames, with metal parts holding the pieces together. It could be opened in half to insert iron balls that were burning along with the wood, and it didn't need gunpowder. Furthermore, the iron balls were created from magical power. Atsushi. You're crazy if you think that's going to hurt us. It's a human weapon. Issei loaded the blunderbuss and fired at them both. They narrowly dodged the flaming bullet, and when it struck a distant tree, a fiery explosion erupted, spewing burning skulls that left everyone speechless. Die. Even though the tree was far away, I felt the heat of the explosion. Meanwhile, Atsushi brushed some of the fire off his suit. Issei. You shouldn't worry about the explosion. The skulls that emerged from the explosion flew toward them, but they both created a magical shield, and every time a skull collided with it, mini explosions were created. Die. They're finally gone. Issei. And that was just one bullet. What did you come here for, birdbrain? Die. I know I've been bothering you a bit lately, but I need your help. Issei. For what? Die. It's something delicate that shouldn't be discussed publicly. The mass sent me. Issei. Only them? Die. And the other demon families. Issei. Alright, let's go to your house. Mine's a mess. He glances at Atsushi. I and Atsushi approached Issei, and they were transported by a magic circle to the main hall, where the mass and a representative from the remaining 72 demon families were gathered. Issei noticed a chair in the middle, larger than the others, with his name on it. He sat down, facing all the men. Some were women representing the families, but most were men. Issei. Well. Now. You see, 2 months ago, a kind of rift formed outside the capital, in the Bale territory. Issei. A rift. Aye. That's right. Issei. That's strange. Now too. Upon being informed, we sent some men to explore the area, but none of them have returned. Only their hearts have come back. The demon lord opened a rather large chest where 88 hearts could be seen in a rather unpleasant state, giving off a foul odor throughout the room. Issei. And you kept all of them this long? With a disgusted look. Demon lord. It was so you could see that it's true. Issei. I suppose they want me to go and investigate on my own. Also, I want to ask you a favor. Issei. Who are you? Sekiryuutei. Sekiryuutei Bale, representative of the Bale clan. Sekiryuutei Bale was a tall, muscular man with black hair and brown eyes with a slight hint of black. Unlike the others who dressed formally, he wore golden armor with a lion's face in the center. Issei. And what is this favor? Sekiryuutei. My daughter, Ima Bale, disappeared the same day the rift opened. Issei. And you don't think she's dead because all the hearts are here? Sekiryuutei. If all 89 hearts were there, I'd have hope she's still alive. Issei. Fine, I'll see if I can find her, though I'm not promising anything. All I ask in return is that you rebuild my house while I'm there. Sekiryuutei. We'll also pay some compensation. Issei. It's not necessary. I don't intend to force you, but if that's what you want, fine by me. Now take me to that rift. Sekiryuutei, along with Atsushi, Dai and a woman, took Issei to the rift. When they were close, Issei noticed it was a rather small rift, so he said goodbye to them, and instantly his skeletal form appeared, only this time his fire was white. Issei. Looks like this will be complicated. The four were surprised to see that form, as they didn't know it had more phases. Issei entered, and when he tried to step inside, he noticed there was no floor. Instead, he was floating through an immense void. Black was the predominant color, but there were also trails that illuminated the place with all sorts of colors. He continued wandering around until he found the body of a girl in a red dress. Her hair was light brown, and her eyes were a somewhat bright green. She seemed to be in shock, as her gaze was lost. He couldn't touch her because a sphere with a black and purple infinity symbol appeared. Issei turned in all directions, searching for what had caused it, but he could only see an attack of the same color coming toward him in the distance. He quickly put up his forearms to block the attack and was thrown a few meters, he didn't really know how many, as he had lost all sense of time and space inside. Issei. What is this? This is the dimensional rift, my home, and you are disturbing it. Issei turned around and saw a girl with black hair. She wore a black dress that left her chest bare, but it had purple laces with buttons and a sort of makeshift bow. She also wore black boots, and her eyes were so black that no emotion could be seen. Issei. Girl, what are you doing? Girl? I'm not a girl, I'm an idiot woman. The woman moved her arm, and a gust of black and purple wind with a viscous consistency pushed Issei until he collided with the sphere where Sekiryuutei's daughter was. Issei. Who are you? Office. My name is Office Ouroboros, and I am the Dragon of Infinity. Issei. Infinity. Office. My power is infinite and I've been here a long time, demon. Issei. That doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Office. This is my home and therefore you might, but if you take that girl out of the sphere, she will die here. Issei. I never said I'd take her out while I was here. I'll take her to her father. Office. And how can I trust you? She points at Issei. Issei. I'm not asking for permission at all. I'm going to do it. Office. You seem just like the others. You only want power. Issei. Why would I want someone else's power when I can strengthen my own? Office unleashed a massive amount of magical power in a concentrated attack, and Issei's fire changed from white to multicolored in an instant, surprising Office, who realized that, like her, his demonic power was constantly evolving. Office. It's even on par with my power. Issei spat flames into his hands and began shaping the fire into circles. He separated his hands, creating a smaller circle in each, and began launching them at Office, who regenerated instantly. The impact of the fireballs, combined with Office's magic shield, unleashed a devastating explosion that, if it occurred elsewhere, would easily burn a human continent to the ground. But for some reason, when it exploded here, the energy was absorbed by the dimensional rift. Office unleashed a powerful attack that struck Issei squarely in the chest, but contrary to what one would expect, Office's magical power beam began to enter Issei's body. He lowered his head for a few seconds, and his flame subsided. Office. What's wrong with him? He doesn't seem to have any physical damage. Issei. Ah. Issei let out a scream as he raised his head, and the fire from his skull and hands rose so high that it melted Office's sphere with ease, leaving her with a few burns. She escaped with the child in her arms as quickly as possible. Office was surprised to see that even so far away from him, his heat continued to hit her as if she were right next to him. Office created another sphere, but a chain held her foot. She quickly used her magic to protect herself from the burns. Issei began to pull on the chain, trying to force it closer. Office defended herself with balls of infinity energy that struck Issei, causing him to release the chain. Office then created a kind of armor with her power and approached Issei, who was clearing away the smoke from the explosion with his hand. For a second, he noticed Office approaching him. He simply extended his arm and pointed his hand at her, unleashing a blast of overwhelming power. The fire would have incinerated anyone in an instant, but when he felt Office place a hand on his chest and an explosion knocked him several meters away, he understood that this phase of his power was free for a reason. Issei. Well, it seems she notices I'm not just some idiot. Issei used his hands to create a circle of fire, and within it, a kind of slanted eye could be seen. He pierced it with his hand, and his fingers began to sharpen into claws. A skeletal tail, engulfed in flames, protruded from beneath his suit. Issei approached Office as best he could and she tried to strike him, but Issei's tail stopped her. He threw her back a few meters and proceeded to approach the sphere to see if the girl was alright. He picked her up in his arms, but Office flew in and headbutted him, sending him flying back. Office. That hurt more than I expected, she said, putting a hand to her head. Issei created a chain and used it to grab Office by the neck. He pulled on it and when Office was close enough, he caught her with the same hand, bringing them face to face. Physically, Issei was obviously taller, but he was surprised to see that she had transformed from a child into a grown woman with a physique comparable to, or even surpassing, that of many demon women considered beautiful. Even so, she was still a little shorter than him, but not as much as before when she was practically flying. Office lapped him, but it burned his hand slightly, and Issei released his grip. Office. Imbecile. Issei. You started attacking first. Why didn't you kill the child? The soldiers did, though. Office. They arrived and, sensing her presence, quickly tried to attack me, unlike her, who arrived in very bad shape. I'm not a monster. I'm a dragon. Issei. Let me take the child to her father. If you want, you can watch from here. Office thought for a few seconds, looking at the sphere of power, and finally agreed. Office. But I'm watching you. Issei. Yes, I only ask one thing. Office. What is it? Issei. Could you decrease the amount of magic power you're using? Otherwise, I won't be able to return. Office. Why? Issei. If I touch someone who doesn't have your power level or something similar in this state, they'll die instantly. Besides, if you don't, I won't be able to stop using this power. Office. Don't you know how to control it? She asked as she watched Issei take her hand, and contrary to what she expected, his breath began to heal her wound. Issei. I place seals on my power, and they activate depending on the amount of power around me, although when everything is calm, I look like a simple human. Office. Good. Office stopped releasing her power, and Issei quickly returned to his human form. Issei. Thank you. By the way, I'm Issei. Office. I didn't ask your name. Issei. Sorry, but since you gave yours, I thought it would be good to say mine. Now, I don't intend to waste any more time. Goodbye. Issei held the sphere with one hand and carried it to the demon world under Office's watchful gaze. Upon entering the underworld, the sphere disappeared and Issei noticed Office watching from the other side of the dimensional rift. Issei was holding Sekiryutei's daughter in his arms, but not before asking Office to come over. Office. It's noisy in here. What do you want? Issei. I just wanted to know, if I ever need help, can I count on you? Office. Why should I help you? You're already strong enough, and besides, I don't like noise. Issei. I just wanted to know. This world is full of surprises, and if someone like you exists, there must be more, and not all of them will be good. Office. Why do you assume I'm kind-hearted? Issei. Just a hunch, but hey, if you ever need help, ask me. I'm free most of the time. Office. You're a strange demon, but at least you're not like the other greedy ones. I'll be going. Now. Office re-entered the rift and it disappeared. Issei walked to Bale Castle, and when he entered, he could see everyone's distress at his absence. Issei. There, favor done. She might be tired, but she'll be fine. Sekiryutei quickly stood up, picked up his daughter, and thanked Issei. He also reported that the rift had been successfully closed, for which the demons paid him. Upon arriving at the grounds where his house had been, he noticed that it was somehow finished. Issei. I thought they'd still be at it when I got back, but apparently not. In fact, when I saw them there, it seemed strange, but oh well. Issei went inside calmly and lay down on his bed to rest. Asgardian conflict. A month had passed since the incident in the dimensional rift and Issei was resting outside his house, watching the sunrise from his front steps. He was so relaxed that he didn't notice when a man with a black beard, one injured eye and the other red, slowly approached him and entered his house. Seeing him, Issei stood up and walked over without a care. Issei. Are you? The man knelt before speaking and lowered his head. Calisso. My name is Calisso. Is it true that you were the only man who entered the dimensional rift and came out alive? Issei. That's why you see me here. Stand up. Calisso stood and took Issei's hand. Calisso. I need you to come with me. Issei. I'm tired of doing favors. Don't tell me it's another rift. Calisso. Exactly, only this time it's bigger. Issei. Where is it? Calisso. In Asgard. Issei. Asgard. You're talking about the place with golden castles and the best warriors. Calisso. The golden castle thing is an exaggeration. There's only one, the central one, but some pillars or portals are made ever covered in gold. Issei. I've never met anyone from there. You're the first. Calisso. I'm not Asgardian, unfortunately for you. I'm a dwarf blacksmith. Issei. I thought they were bigger. Calisso. Let's just say I have a disease. There are different variations within our species and I belong to a very rare one. But I work as a blacksmith in Asgard and they summoned you. Issei. They know me even there. Calisso. Well, a rumor started about a man on fire wearing a suit very similar to yours, but the rumors said it was mostly white. Issei. That suit is drying. I washed it and made this black one so I'd have more clothes. He points to the backyard. Calisso. Alright, let's not waste any more time. Please, get on my horse. Issei. Isn't there an easier way to get here? Calisso. The Bifrost can transport us, but since we're in Asgard, we have to go, and it's best to get there quickly. Issei. Fine. Issei climbed onto the back and a white beam absorbed all three of them, including the horse. Upon arriving, Issei noticed a statue in golden armor holding a sword. Calisso began riding the horse toward the main castle. As they arrived, the intense white fire from Issei's horse became visible and all the Asgardians gathered to watch. Issei simply followed behind Calisso and upon entering, they were greeted by guards. Guard. You've finally arrived, dwarf blacksmith. Calisso. I had to verify it was him and explain the situation. Is he already waiting for us? Guard. For some time now, he's been speaking with representatives from other realms, like Niflheim. Issei entered with Calisso and noticed a golden table where several people sat, all in armor and with serious expressions. Issei was about to approach, but on the last step, Calisso grabbed his sleeve and pulled him back, even though he was already on one knee. Calisso. Bow. Issei. I won't bow to anyone. You sought my help for a reason. He broke free. Calisso. My lady, I've brought the man of the rumors. At this, a woman with white hair and an eye patch over her right eye stood up. She wore golden armor with black accents and carried a sword on her back with a golden scabbard. She walked around the table and Issei approached under everyone's watchful eyes. You may stand, Calisso. So you're that demon man. Issei. And you are? Odin. I am Odin, the king of the gods, god of war. Issei. Wisdom, of poetry, of magic, and I don't remember the others. I thought you were a man. Auden. If Calypso explained it properly, it's best not to waste any time. Auden turned around, but Issei didn't follow. Auden. What's wrong? Issei. Well, let's just say I don't work for free. If you want my help, there has to be some compensation, however small. I'm not demanding. Auden. Fine, in that case, how about 30 gold ingots? Everyone remained silent, waiting for Issei's answer. Issei. Make it 50. Auden. And you're not demanding. Issei. You have many more stored beneath these walls. Don't be stingy. Issei walked beside Auden while the others walked behind them. Auden. It's surprising to think that someone like you exists. Issei. If you exist, anything is possible. Auden. I mean, the heat of your flames is overwhelming. It doesn't affect me much, but it does affect others, he points, still looking at him. Issei. They'll just have to deal with it. I'm just here to do the job, and I'll stop bothering them. Upon arriving, they saw a rift much larger than the previous one, and Issei decided to enter without further ado. Once inside, he noticed Office sitting in her small form, floating through the void of the dimensional rift. Issei approached until Office noticed his presence. Office? You again? Issei. Yes, I'm even thinking of moving. They looked at each other for a few seconds until Office spoke again. Office. What do you need? Issei. Well, another rift opened. Can't you control the rift? Office. I don't open them. I have neither the desire nor the need. Someone else is doing it from the outside. Issei was surprised by Office's comment and how calm she was. Issei. And you don't mind them bothering you so much? Office. I don't really pay attention to them, it's not like they're causing me much trouble. She looked at him wearily. Issei. Fine then, I just ask that you close this rift. I'll investigate who did it so I don't bother you anymore, although I'm not promising not to come back here if necessary. Office. Okay, I'll follow you to close it when you leave. Issei left the rift and it closed automatically. As he stepped out, he saw everyone staring at him in amazement. Auden. What did you do? Issei. I just had some help. It's done, but someone is opening them from the outside and I need to investigate who it is, otherwise I'm going to be getting calls from all over. Auden. Good then, follow me so I can give you your reward. Issei followed Auden along with the others, but on the way he saw the skeleton of a horse. Issei. How long ago did it die? Auden. I don't know, I hadn't even noticed. I mostly worry about the horses in our army. Issei. So it's okay if I keep it? Auden. It's dead, did you know? Issei. Please, even you should know how to revive it. Auden. Yes, but the spell isn't permanent. Issei. Then it must be because of my power. Issei approached, and his flames ignited a pale red. He spat out fire, incinerating the entire skeleton, but seconds later, it began to rise as its skin regenerated. As it was restored, some parts took on the hue of Issei's fire, such as his eyes, the crest of fur that ran along part of his back and head, his hooves, and the fire that occasionally escaped from his nose. Additionally, small but smoldering lines of fire ran along his entire body. Issei mounted the horse, and as he stroked it, a saddle formed from its mouth, and a long rope appeared in both hands, along with a saddle that appeared simultaneously. Issei. Well, I like it. Issei extinguished his fire, and the horse had a normal appearance, its coat completely black. Auden. You're impressive. Wouldn't you like to join my army? Issei. I'm sorry, but no. I have a lot to do, and I don't think I'd like to work forever for someone, no offense. Auden. You're a complicated person. I like that. Everyone continued on their way while Issei mounted his horse. When they arrived, Issei dismounted and stroked the horse. Issei. You can rest now. A circle of fire appeared in front of the horse and it passed through it, disappearing. Auden. Here are your 50 gold ingots. Thank you very much. Issei smiled at the sight of the gold ingots and looked at Calypso. Issei. You work for Auden, right? Calypso. That's right. Issei. Which makes you a good blacksmith. Calypso. Not to brag, but yes, quite good. Issei. I want you to make me a sturdy suit of armor with those gold ingots. Calypso. A full body suit. Issei. Yes. Calypso. Good, then I'll need 30 ingots. Issei. And I'll pay you with 5. How long will it take? Calypso. Well, between melting the gold and molding it, putting it in water, and letting it cure a month. Issei. What if I melt the gold right now? Calypso. Well, I don't think that's possible, because I'd have to keep calling him every so often to come over. Issei. I guess I'll have to wait. I'll leave it to you. Issei said goodbye to everyone, and a magic circle took him home. Issei. Well, it's not normal for cracks to be opening up like this out of nowhere. There must be a reason, or rather, someone. I'll start with the mass. Issei went to the mass's castle, but on his way, he noticed his body begin to burn slightly and a faint flame appeared in his right hand. Issei. That's strange, I don't feel anything. Issei noticed a small flash at the top of the castle, which blinded him a little. When he arrived, he noticed that the mass were asleep, as were all the servants. Issei. How odd. Issei searched the entire castle and didn't find a single person awake, so he left, but he was surprised to find himself in a dark place. Issei. Okay, this is weird. He continued walking aimlessly when suddenly he felt himself fall. He was in freefall, but in an instant, he hit the ground. When he got up, he realized he was in the human world, which he found strange. He walked a little, but then he saw that people's faces were beginning to deform and empty eye sockets were appearing in each one. Suddenly, all the humans began to rush at him, causing his red-hot fire to appear, and he prepared to strike them all. But with each blow, a small explosion and laughter erupted. Suddenly, there were too many of them, and he felt as if they were tearing him apart alive. He raised his hand and saw only thousands of anguished faces, and once again, he was floating. Now he didn't know where he was or what was happening, but everything began to shake, and a light blinded him. When he opened his eyes, he realized he was on the ground. Demon? Are you alright? Issei. What happened? Demon. You were walking while spouting nonsense and you bumped into the barrel. I shook you for about 2 minutes until you snapped out of it. Issei. Thanks. Issei stood up and leaned against a stone wall. He was resting when suddenly a rift opened in front of him and Office stepped out. Office. Come in quickly. Issei. Why? Office didn't wait and grabbed his hand, pulling him inside. Once inside, he realized he was there and he saw everything he had dreamed or experienced moments before. Office. What does this mean? What did you do? Issei. I didn't do anything. A flash blinded me and all of this happened. Office. This isn't normal. Now I'm fed up with them playing with my home. Issei. And what does that mean? Office. I'm going to help you, which means I'll have to go to your world. Issei. That makes things easier for me. Issei stepped out of the rift, as did Office, and she closed the rift she had created. She was in her adult form, so to speak, and walked toward the castle beside Issei. Issei. And who knows about your existence? Office. The mass, some archangels, some Asgardians, specifically gods, but it's mostly because of my power. They don't recognize me physically, or they've only seen me from afar. Issei. Good. Now we'll go to the mass to see if they have any information. Office. Good. Upon entering, Issei opened the door for Office and she continued on her way, looking around the entire castle. They arrived at the main hall where the three mass were and they stared at Office. She simply looked at them coldly before sitting down on a sofa a little ways away. Meanwhile, Issei approached the mass. Mau. Who is she? Mau too. Did you get a fiancé? Issei. She's not going to help me with the problem of the rifts. Apparently, this isn't the only place they've appeared and I want to know if they have any information. Mau 3. Well, let me see the records of the Bale clan guards. They note who enters and leaves the castle each day. The Demon King left and an awkward silence filled the room. Issei sat next to Office and she leaned close to his ear. Office. Did you tell them who I am? Issei. You didn't ask me to. Office. Fine. Minutes passed and when the Demon King returned, he brought several papers with the names of everyone who had entered the castle. Issei. This will make it impossible to find him. If someone wanted to open a rift, I doubt they entered that way. The guards probably escorted them. Besides, if we only go by these names, we have too many suspects. Office. The castles in this world have a power barrier. We can use this to determine the number of people who entered. If the numbers match, then they entered normally. But if they don't, then they entered some other way and none of them were there. Issei. Or someone here could have been an accomplice. Office. That's a possibility. Issei. Okay, I'll take these papers and bring them back later. I'll see if I can find out anything about each of them. Mau. And how will you know who's who? Issei. Leave it to me. They both left the castle and walked to Issei's house. Once there, Issei noticed a small family of cats had been there, but he didn't chase them away. He sat in his favorite chair and placed the papers on a table. Meanwhile, Office sat on his bed and began petting the cats that sat on his lap. Office. What are you going to do? Issei. I've always wanted to test a skill I learned. I need you to release some of your power, please. Office did as requested and Issei's flames appeared, turning white. He stepped back from the wood to avoid burning it and passed his hand, which held a circle of fire, over the paper. All the names began to glow. Issei. Transition. The names flashed briefly and several men appeared behind him. Man 1. Where are we? Issei. Good, it worked. Office, please come here. Office stood beside Issei as he looked at all the men. Issei. You see, you entered Bale Castle on the same day a dimensional rift opened. Man 13. A dimensional rift. Issei. You don't need to know what it is. I just want to ask you, didn't you see anything strange that day, anything that made you think for a moment? All the men looked at each other, indicating they hadn't seen anything, until one raised his hand. Issei. Perfect. Please speak. Man 22. Well, when I arrived at the castle, the guards were escorting me to the entrance, but I sensed a rather strong presence. I turned toward a tree and saw a tall man. His hair appeared to be blonde and some kind of black liquid came out of his hand. Then he flew away quickly. Issei. Blonde hair. Office. That's not much information. Anything else to note? Man 22. Well, he had his back to me, so I can't really focus on that, but he was wearing an elegant black suit. Also, I could see a symbol, but it was blurry. My eyesight isn't very good. Office. Draw it on the paper. Office gave the man a sheet of paper and Issei took out a quill and placed an inkwell beside him. The man proceeded to draw a small beak, followed by what appeared to be wings. Man 22. Sorry, the rest was very blurry and I can't remember it well. Issei. A beak, wings, blonde hair, he was elegantly dressed and he was tall. About my height. Man 22. More or less. Issei. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Now, get out of my house. All the men left and Office closed the door as Issei sat down on his sofa. Issei. I think I have an idea of who it could have been. Office. A member of the Phoenix family. Issei. Exactly, you're quite intuitive as well. Office. That makes sense, since both times I closed the rift, it released a small flame for a few brief seconds before disappearing. Issei. And why didn't you suspect me? Office. Well, it would be very stupid of you to go and close your own plans. Issei. It could be to avoid raising suspicion. Office. Your fire isn't that weak, unfortunately for you. Issei. Thank you for the compliment. Office. So, what should we do now? Issei. Well, the best thing would be to visit Phoenix Castle. Issei left the house with Office and they walked to the Phoenix clan castle. Upon entering, they looked for Dai, but the guards blocked their path. Issei. Are you denying me entry? Guard. He's currently occupied in his room. Office. Your demonic barriers won't stop me. Step aside. Guard, I can't allow that, miss. Issei felt his power increase, but his flames didn't appear, so he looked at Office. Office. What's wrong? Issei. Didn't you power up? Office. No, wait, your power increased, but your flames aren't there. Issei. Move aside. James emerged from the ground and bound the guards' hands and feet, dragging them across the floor, clearing the way for them both. They searched the entire castle until they sensed a vast amount of power deep within. Office. It's the power of the dimensional rift. Issei. We have to go down. Office destroyed the floor with a single attack and they noticed some stairs. They went down them and found themselves in a dungeon. Issei went ahead of Office and noticed a bright light in front of them and he could just make out a silhouette. Office. It's him, no doubt. Issei. But what's he doing? Office. He's absorbing energy from the rift. Unfortunately for him, his demonic body can't absorb too much. Issei. That's why this phase is active. Office. Give him some time. His thirst for power will destroy him. Issei. We can't wait for that. Office. Fine, then let's finish this once and for all. Office came out of hiding and fired a beam of power that struck the silhouette. It went flying and the rift from which it was absorbing power closed. Die. New. Issei. I didn't expect that from you, you bird brain. Die. You don't know what you've done. My power was almost complete. Office. You were absorbing power from my home. Home. You're the dragon of infinity. Office didn't respond. Instead, with an attack, she laid an egg in Dai's stomach. Issei. He can regenerate. Office. I know, but I'll finish him off in a few moments. Dai. I don't intend to let this end like this. Dai's body was engulfed in flames and a powerful explosion destroyed the dungeon. Issei was sent flying and landed outside the castle, while Office descended slowly until her feet touched the ground calmly. Issei. Couldn't you help me? Office. You didn't ask. Issei got up and Dai flew away in the form of a flaming bird. Issei. What a weak fire. Office pointed her hand at Dai, a magic circle formed and from it, several small spheres shot out at high speed toward him, but he dodged them by flying through the air. Issei, on the other hand, ran toward him and Dai plummeted down, gaining incredible speed. As he neared the ground, he twisted his body to fly swiftly toward Issei. They faced each other, neither stopping, and suddenly they collided. A large cloud of smoke filled the area and as it dissipated, Issei attached a chain around Dai's neck. Dai began to fly, but Issei, with Office's help, pulled him back and he crashed heavily to the ground. As he got up and dusted himself off, he received 3 blows from Issei that left him stunned and a blast of power destroyed a small building. Dai. Not my power. It took me so long to master this form. Office. It was never your power. You were taking advantage of my home. Issei. And now the ultimate punishment for your sins. You endangered a little girl, you bastard. Issei created an axe and when Dai tried to fly away, he cut off his wings. Dai fell to the ground in pain, but his wounds weren't regenerating. Issei. I know what I'm doing. I had help from an angel. She gave me holy water. I wasn't planning on using it against you, but since we're here. Issei grabbed Dai by the hair under Office's watchful gaze and brought the axe to his neck. He pulled it away to take flight, but Office grabbed his hand. Office. Are you sure? Issei. Of course I am. Office. Good, then I won't interrupt you any longer. Office released Issei's hand and he cut off Dai's head. It rolled along the ground for a few meters until Issei stopped it with his foot. Issei. I have an idea to stop you from regenerating anymore. Office looked at Issei seriously and he looked at him in the same way. Issei. What? Office. I thought you were going to hand him over to the mass. Issei. No, that would have been stupid. I prefer to handle problems myself. Office. Well, now that this problem is over, I can rest in peace for a while. See you soon, demon. Issei. Yes, see you soon. Office disappeared using a rift and seconds later it closed. Issei went home and left Dai's head, which was showing slight signs of regenerating. He opened a fairly large jar filled with holy water and placed the head inside, then closed it. He put it on his mantelpiece in a small space and began writing several letters with the same message, implying that he had already taken care of the problem. Afterward, he created a magic circle and sent the letters to the mass and Odin, also specifying to the mass that he had killed Dai. Temporary life in Asgard. Several days had passed since Dai Phoenix's death. In response, the highest representatives of each species angels, demons, fallen angels, Asgardians, vampires, dragons, yokai and others gathered in the underworld for a secret meeting to discuss Issei. Odin. So now he's killed a power-hungry man. Now 3. In a rather bizarre way. Now. Exaggerated, I'd say. The man placed a hand on the table, has 12 white wings and golden armor making themselves visible in the room. Michael. We can't tolerate this anymore. This man goes around killing whomever he pleases, just like that, and you don't exercise any authority. Now 2. He's only killed bad people. Michael. With what authorization, yours or his own? Odin. If he kills 1 or 2 bastards, what difference does it make? His wars have caused far more deaths. Michael. There's no doubt about that, and that's why, as the new representative, I want to prevent any danger to my people. The vampire woman smiled at this. She was elegantly dressed in a black robe that made her pale skin practically glow. Her eyes were red and her fangs were visible. Her black hair was loose. She stood up from the table and pointed her finger at Michael. Sina. So you're implying that your people are evil, Michael? That would be awful coming from angels. Michael. I'm not referring to that, but there have been cases where an angel or archangel breaks a rule or uses their power for purposes that aren't good for everyone. In those cases, a trial is held depending on their crimes and a sentence is handed down. You can't go around killing people just because you feel like it and the authority of that place commands no respect. At this, the Mayu stood up angrily and the second one walked toward him. Mayu 2. Do you think you can stop him? Michael. Any of us should be able to. We're the highest representatives of our respective races, the strongest, most skilled, and we've lived through experiences that have helped us develop not only our combat skills, but also some of our customs. Mayu. He's no slouch either. He could be the 4th Mayu if he wanted. He's quite powerful, and I haven't even seen him use his full power, I'm sure of that. Sina. So, are we in a new era with a new beast of the apocalypse? Odin. That might be an exaggeration, or maybe not. Sina. Well, considering all the information you've given and deducing it, he seems strong enough to reach the power of the apocalypse beast Trihexa. Michael. We're talking about a demon. That thing has no feelings whatsoever. It only seeks to destroy. Sina. Should I remind you that it was a creation of your god that got out of hand? In this world, anything is possible. Michael. Besides, it's already sealed. It can't escape its prison. Many died to achieve this, and so that we could be here. Auden, we're getting off topic, Michael. Are you sure you want to talk to him about this? Michael. If he's a civilized person, I'm sure he'll understand and we'll give him a chance to prove it. Sina. This is going to be a lot of fun with a slight smile. Wow. I'll see if he's home. I can't believe we're actually doing this. Michael. Should we all go or just me? Now 3. It's best if we all go. Mau. If he's there, I can see him. It's time to go. The Mau created a magic circle and everyone stood around it. When it disappeared, they were at Issei's house and he was calmly eating at his table. Seeing everyone there, he got up and started putting more plates on the table and taking out a spare one. Michael. We didn't come here to eat. Issei. I've already set things out, so you'd better eat what I give you. You should have said so from the beginning. Everyone sat down without any problems, even Michael's, waiting for the brown-haired man who was cooking several things. When he finished, he served them a portion of meat with rice, as well as a kind of ramen with small shrimp. The meat was a considerably large piece, and when cut, it released its juices. Sina. Wow, you cook very well. Issei. It's something basic. Issei sat down, and everyone began to eat with gusto until Michael spoke. Michael. Hi to Issei, right? Issei. Yes, what's up? Michael. You see, those of us here have had a small meeting about you, and I wanted to tell you something very important. Issei. I'm not going to stop killing the scum of this world. I can guess what you were talking about, right? Michael. If you're quite perceptive, from what I can see, I ask you, as the highest representative of heaven, to stop doing this. If there are any criminals involved, leave it to the highest authorities and they will receive appropriate punishment. Issei. In my opinion, if you murder someone, they should die. If you try to grape someone, they should die, and so on. Sina. I'm surprised you have no remorse. Issei. I have plenty, but I don't show it, obviously. Although, when it comes to killing, honestly, no, I don't care. Auden. I actually like it. If someone has the nerve to commit such crimes and thinks they won't receive the punishment commensurate with their actions, then they're mistaken. In Asgard, if a man grapes a woman, his penis is cut off with a sword heated by dragon fire, and he dies in agony. Michael. Thanks for the help. Let's ignore what Auden said for a bit and focus. She may have decided on that punishment, but she's the highest authority in the place she inhabits. You, unfortunately, aren't. Issei. I can be if I want to. Michael. It's not just a matter of wanting to. She has many responsibilities. Issei. Of course I know that, but in my own way, I'm a form of ultimate authority. Now, criminals hide when they hear about me. They call me the demon of purgatory, and I haven't even been there yet. Michael. It seems our ways of thinking don't align. Well, I'll leave the subject for today. If the Moes don't do something about you and it affects one of mine, then I'll have to stop you. Issei. So you're an enemy? Michael. That depends on your actions. I'm looking out for a better future and you only see death and destruction. Sina. I agree with him too. After all, they're criminals. Everyone left, but before going, Sina delicately ran her hand along Issei's neck and made a small scratch with her fingernail. There was a little blood on it and she brought her finger to her mouth, tasting the small drop while Issei watched. Issei. How strange. Sina. It's delicious. I have to do something to have more. That man is incredible, Auden. Auden. What's wrong? Sina. Is he single? Auden. I don't know, I suppose so. Sina. Or maybe he has a partner and I could be the second or third, maybe even the fourth. I don't care, but I have to taste more of his blood sometime. Auden. That's a repulsive taste. Sina. Shut up. It's good for vampires to drink the blood of someone strong, and by God, he's dead. That man has exquisite blood. Issei took a shower, put on his iconic outfit and left his house. He headed through the desert and returned to the cave where he had encountered the Guardian, who had left the sphere floating there. He entered the cave and found the Guardian in the same position, so he simply left some flowers. The souls of the dragons approached him and he gently struck them. He said goodbye and left, holding the sphere in his hands, and decided to explore the human world. Issei. Well, maybe I can do something interesting up there. Whatever will be, will be. Issei was transported by his magic circle to a random location in the human world. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a kind of locker room with weapons. He left the room and saw a coliseum in front of him, so he went inside, but a somewhat muscular man in very light armor stopped him. Bard. You can't go in. Issei. Oh, yes, I can. Bard. Where's the money? Issei. Give me a second. Issei pretended to pull something out of his bag, but instead, he quickly turned toward the man, grabbed his head, and slammed it against the wall, knocking him out instantly. He rushed inside before anyone noticed and saw several men fighting a lion. Among the crowd, he spotted a display case containing a somewhat overweight man, 2 women beside him, and several guards, even more heavily armored than the man, protecting the area. Issei. What the hell is this? Issei watched the entire fight and by the end, 4 of the 5 men had died alongside the lion. The last one was forced to his knees and standing before the man, he simply gave a thumbs down. The man in the arena paled at this and one of the guards punched him in the face while another, wielding an axe, raised it. Just as he was about to decapitate the gladiator, a spear pierced his head through the eye, killing him instantly. The other guard turned in the direction the spear had been thrown, only this time a blunderbuss bullet tore off his arm and he fell to the ground. Issei emerged from the shadows and everyone began to boo him. Issei. What the hell? A man was going to die and you were going to accept it. Issei helped the gladiator to his feet and more guards arrived. The crowd began to applaud and Issei used some of his demonic powers without them noticing. Issei. Sinful eyes. Issei began to look around, seeing the sins of everyone present in the Colosseum. He realized that most of them had murdered or raped, especially that fat man, and even some women had committed infidelity and murder for money. Issei. What disgusting humans you all are, you deserve to die. Issei signaled to the gladiator to leave and he ran out of the arena. The guards quickly approached him, but Issei disappeared. Bard. A magician. Issei appeared at the top of the Colosseum and flames quickly appeared, though they were very weak. Issei. Meh, it'll do to burn this place down. Issei began to breathe fire, burning the entire arena and everyone inside. The fat man tried to flee, but Issei grabbed him by the neck and dragged him back to the top of the Colosseum where he had been before. Issei. Do you see this? All of you are ungrateful, vile creatures, rapists and/or murderers. You kill for money or for sheer pleasure. I'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget. Man. When they catch you for burning down my Colosseum, they'll behead you and I'll laugh at you from hell. Issei. Stop your bad luck. Issei burst into flames again, seizing the man. He lifted him slightly, inflicting severe burns, and then spat out fire, quickly incinerating his skin and leaving only his burning skull. Issei. I come from there, and your sins, along with those of all these damned souls, have been atoned for. Issei threw the corpse into the fire that engulfed the entire Colosseum as he vanished. 1 month later. Issei went to Asgard to collect his armor and pay a visit to Odin. He was calmly waiting for Callisto to deliver his armor. Odin. Besides your armor, what brings you here? Issei. Well, a month ago I incinerated a human Colosseum because there were all sorts of bastards present and the mass have been somewhat exasperated or annoying. They remind me and ask me not to do that anymore, but I don't care. There were only miserable people there. Odin. Sometimes I'm surprised you're like this. There have always been assassins, but when someone stronger than them or a figure of authority stop them, they beg for their lives. You, on the other hand, simply defy them and keep going. Issei. I'm not like them. Odin. Yes, I understand that perfectly. If you need help or anything, tell me. Maybe we can make a good deal. Issei. Thank you. Odin left and Issei went to the forge where Callisto worked. When he arrived, he noticed a golden suit of armor on a shelf. It was a full bodysuit with a helmet that had an opening. The armor had an incredible design. It looked like flames were rising from the bottom to the top and there were touches of black in some parts. Next to the armor was a kind of protective mask with small holes all over it. Issei. What's that supposed to be? Callisto. Well, you see, this design is very fashionable among humans. Although they don't wear anything on their legs, they leave their shoulders and elbows exposed for greater mobility and compensate with shields. They also cover the face opening with this so they can see and breathe without problems. It goes over the face, since there are 2 circles next to the opening that fit perfectly. Plus, you can raise or lower it if you want. Issei. Yes, I've seen some people using this type of armor. Callisto. I also managed to do something that even surprised me. You see, when you gave me one of the ingots, it had a small flame of yours that traveled all over it and set it on fire. At first, I thought about sending for you to warn you about the problem, but I was surprised to see that the gold became very malleable. So, I created some protective gloves because, as you can see, the armor only goes up to the wrist. The gloves will only cover part of the hand, leaving the fingers free for a better grip on weapons and other things. Issei. Perfect, though I'd prefer you leave the helmet aside. Could you make something else with it? Callisto. Maybe I could make a short sword, or if you bring me more ingots, something else. Issei. I propose something. Make the blade of a spear, and I'll bring the handle. Callisto. A spear. Are you sure? Issei. Yes, make it the deadliest one you've ever made. Callisto. Good, then it'll take me about 2 or 3 days. Issei. Fine, maybe I'll stay here in Asgard and wait. Feliso. If so, then come back in 3 days, and it'll be ready. Issei picked up the armor and, to avoid carrying the weight, removed most of his clothes and put it on. It was light but noticeably sturdy. Issei used some of his powers to withstand the intense heat emanating from his body, and after a few minutes of spell manipulation, he achieved his goal. He stood up and went to Auden to ask for lodging for a week. She found him a rather small house near her castle. Auden. Unfortunately, it's not free. Issei. What do you want me to do? Auden. You have 2 options. Either work as a farmer or cook, because I don't think you want to work as a guard or go on missions. Issei. I propose something. I'll be both, but you'll give me a small compensation. Auden. Done. Not only would you cook for me, but you'll also work in one of the best restaurants in the area. Issei. Fine, deal. From that day on, Issei began working as a farmer, shearing sheep, bathing pigs, and milking cows. He was responsible for protecting the livestock from predators, cleaning the stables, and feeding the horses. In the afternoons, he went to work at the restaurant Auden had indicated. The cooks were amazed by Issei's skill and how he used his powers to cook dishes faster and impress the customers, since he cooked right in front of them. Issei. Alright, here's an order of beef, bathed in soy sauce and seasoned with select spices, accompanied by dry noodles in red sauce, plus broccoli soup. Customer. That's incredible, Mr. Haidu. Issei. Thank you. The week passed like this until Issei retrieved his spear blade. During those days, he worked to obtain the handle, which he successfully crafted, resulting in an incredible weapon that he stored in his temporary home. Issei. I could live here for quite a while. After all, the mass are looking for me every day from early morning to lecture me. I'll talk to Auden. Issei headed towards the castle and greeted Auden. Auden. I thought you had already left. I forgot to thank you for the delicious meal. Issei. You're welcome, but I was planning to stay here for a while. After all, the mass will be a nuisance if I go back, and if I go to the human world, I won't be using my powers. At this news, Auden's eyes lit up and she quickly grabbed Issei by the shoulder. Auden. What incredible news. If you want to stay, that's fine with me, but if you don't want to pay for a house, I can help you. Issei. Although it's not free, is it? Auden. You're very perceptive. Issei. What do you want? Auden. If you'd like, you can stop working as a farmer and cook. I'd like you to train my men and help me with some missions. Of course, you'll be paid. Issei. You're persistent. Fine, I accept the deal, but if the missions involve other races, I won't do them. Auden. That's fine. It's a pleasure working with you. You'll continue living where you are unless you want to move to this castle. There are plenty of rooms available. Issei. That's fine, thanks. When do I start? Auden. Come tomorrow as soon as the sun rises. My men will be waiting for you. Issei nodded and went home. He prepared something to eat with the few ingredients he had and went to sleep. The next morning, he went to Auden's castle first thing and saw a group of men waiting. Issei. Well, for now, I'll be something of a teacher to you. If anyone has a complaint or anything, you can go to Auden. Don't bother me. The training will be tough, but considering you're Asgardians, I think you'll be able to handle it. Soldiers. Ahoo. The soldiers had spears in hand and struck the ground as they shouted. Issei. Now, one of you tell me where the nearest mountain is. Soldier. About 100 kilometers away. It's Mount Corsa. It's quite large, but it's known for its cold temperatures. Issei. Right, how tall is it? Soldier. Well, I don't know, maybe 8 kilometers high, maybe 9. Issei. Alright, we'll teleport to that mountain, but we'll run 20 kilometers to get there. Once there, we'll climb half the mountain without our equipment. Obviously, I don't want any naked men, so you'll only remove your clothing and/or armor from the waist up. By the way, we're going to set up a small training base there. I know I'm not training your entire army, just the elite, but we'll train in the cold without protection. Issei divided the 200 soldiers into 2 groups. Those on the right were to carry logs, stones, and materials to build the base, while those on the left were to carry all the weapons and food. Issei. Well, by the way, if one of you dies there, I'll make sure to revive you so you can continue training. So, if you plan on dying, let it be from a heart attack so I can revive you. Otherwise, I can't. Soldiers. Ahoo. The soldiers sat down and began preparing everything. Once finished, they teleported to Issei and began their training. The combined jogging and climbing took about 4 hours. Obviously, they didn't climb the entire mountain. They were only at the 2nd kilometer when they stopped to rest, having already covered 22 kilometers. After 20 minutes, they got up again and began to rest. Finally, after about 23 hours, they reached the summit, taking short 10-minute breaks. Once there, everyone was freezing, but Issei helped them by making small fires for 20 people each and lighting them while they covered the fire with stones to keep it burning. Since it was Issei's fire, it was very difficult. He stayed warm in that state and began constructing the base. Issei. We even collected furs from the mountain. You could make clothes to protect yourselves from the cold. The soldiers nodded and began cutting the hides. Some cooked the meat they had obtained, while others started making clothes for everyone. Issei, meanwhile, continued building the foundation of the base. He held in his hands a plan he had drawn the night before. It showed a fairly large house with 10 rooms, surrounded by stone walls with cold-resistant flowers and small fields outside with ovens, as well as tables for eating and a training area in the back. Issei began cutting logs in half and arranging them. Some soldiers helped him by removing earth in the places Issei indicated for the floor he was making. Other soldiers were in charge of making a sticky substance so that it would adhere well. The night passed, and together they managed to create the first floor with 2 rooms. It had no roof, but since everyone had clothes and had eaten, they were able to get through the night. When they woke up, they warmed themselves a little again by the fires. Issei continued building the house alongside a group of 50 soldiers was working, another 50 were constructing the furnaces according to Issei's plans, and the remaining 100 had gone down to gather more food and water. 9 hours passed, and 4 of the 8 planned furnaces were already finished. Construction of the house was progressing well. They were already on the 6th room, and some soldiers had even begun laying the foundations for the wall. Everything was peaceful when an unexpected visitor arrived. Auden with a large group of women. Issei. Are those the Valkyries, soldier? Soldier. Yes sir, they're the elite of the elite, just like us, only all women, obviously. Issei. I can tell. Does Auden train them personally? Soldier. That's right, sir. Issei walked towards Auden, who looked at him in surprise. Auden. I thought you were going to train them, not build a small village in the mountains. Issei. For now, they'll sleep here, just like me, but they'll come down every weekend to see their families and such. Auden. You are quite remarkable. And I see that clothing isn't the armor they're supposed to have. Issei. It's part of the training. Auden. Good. I just wanted to check on your progress. I'll come back next week. Auden left with the Valkyries, and everyone continued working. Another 7 hours passed, and the furnaces were ready. The house only needed 1 more room, and the other soldiers had returned. The wall had already completed a full circuit of the designated area, but its height was still rather small, barely reaching 2 meters. Issei. Alright, the 10 of us will build this last room. The rest of you start preparing food. Everyone nodded, and after an hour, the house was finished. The roof of the top floor was missing, but they would do that tomorrow. They all ate mushroom soup and went to sleep in their rooms. Morning came, and the first thing Issei did was finish the roof of the top floor with a layer of wood and another of stone on top. Once the base of the house was finished, Issei removed some wooden parts and went to collect some sand using a magic circle. He brought back about 2 sacks, and some soldiers began making glass panes to use as windows in the house. Issei. Don't waste the glass making only square shapes. Make lanterns too. I'll go with some men to the city armory for iron. We won't be long. The soldiers nodded, and Issei teleported with a small group of men to the city where they obtained iron and the lantern mold. Upon returning, 5 men began making the lanterns. When they were ready, they placed leaves inside, Issei lit the flame, and they sealed them before placing them in the rooms to provide light, in addition to placing a large one in the main area. Issei. Well, this looks very good. The afternoon has only just begun, so now we'll do this. 10 men will continue building the wall while the rest of you train with me. Tomorrow you'll take turns, and so on. The good thing is we have food reserves. The soldiers nodded and began doing as Issei said. As the hours passed, everyone was exhausted except for Issei. Since it was the weekend, he teleported them to the city so they could see their families, and he went home to rest. Babysitter for a day and raiding game. 3 months had passed since Issei took charge of training Asgard's strongest soldiers. Because of this, he began to gain recognition not only in Asgard but in many other places, including heaven and hell. Besides being called the demon of Purgatory, he was considered a master of combat and self-defense. He was currently resting peacefully at home, reading about some of the strangest Asgardian powers, when someone suddenly knocked on his door. Issei. I'm coming, people are so impatient. Issei opened the door and found himself face to face with one of the soldiers. Issei. What's wrong? Soldier. Well, Our Lady Auden has entrusted us with a mission of utmost importance, and I have no one to look after my son. Issei saw that the man was holding a baby in his arms. The baby was asleep, but its thumb was in its mouth. Soldier. Please take care of him while I'm on this mission. Issei. What about your wife? Soldier. She passed away a long time ago, just like my mother. I beg you. Issei. Alright, I'll take care of him. Although I've never looked after a baby before, children, yes, but not babies. Issei picked up the baby, and the soldier ran off with the others who were waiting for him. Issei. Well, for now, since you're asleep, I'll stay put. Issei sat down in front of his fireplace, as it was starting to get cold in Asgard at that time of year. He held the baby in his arms, but he began to get hungry, so he cooked with one hand and held the baby with the other. He made himself a simple steak with some rice. When the baby smelled the food, he woke up and started to cry, so Issei made some mashed potatoes and gave it to him. Issei. Well, for now, it's not so difficult. Issei began to eat while the baby watched him when he heard a knock at the door. Issei. Looks like everyone's looking for me today. Issei picked up the baby and opened the door, finding Auden holding several papers. Auden. Am I interrupting? Issei. Come in, I'm watching him. Auden. Whose is he? Auden entered and closed the door before going into the dining room. Issei. He belongs to one of my soldiers. Would you like to hold him? Auden. Why not? Issei handed him the baby and proceeded to eat calmly. Auden placed the papers on the table and began to rock the baby to sleep, but a gust of wind made him sneeze. Issei. I'll close the window. Auden. Don't you have something to cover him with? Issei. A blanket, will that do? Auden. Yes, please bring it. Issei went to his room and brought back a rather short blanket, which Auden used to wrap the baby. He sat down near the fireplace and relaxed. Issei brought the papers and placed them on the coffee table in front of them, then sat in the chair next to Auden. Issei. So, what did you want to talk about? Auden. Well, I was planning to ask you about some strategy. Issei. Strategy? Auden. Lately, there have been several problems with some races. I want to respond politely, but I also need to have a contingency plan just in case. It wouldn't be the first time we've been attacked. Issei. Well, if that's the case, who are you having trouble with? Auden. The Fallen and the Frost Giants are a nuisance, but that's an everyday occurrence. Issei. Maybe I could go and talk to the Fallen, but the Frost Giants, from what I understand, are a bit more brutish. Auden. And you're right. Can you open this paper? Issei opened the paper and found a map of the entire capital of Asgard. Auden. These are the least fortified points. Everything is covered by a fairly reinforced wall, as you know, but there are several entrances. One of the least frequented is the eastern one, used only by a few merchants from other regions, like the dwarves. Issei. Perhaps it would be a good idea to build a tunnel, seal the entrance, and create a hidden underground tunnel that only trusted merchants know about. It would connect to the guild, allowing them to come and go easily, and it would also be less likely that they would be robbed or anything like that. Asgard. There isn't much theft here. Those who do are outsiders who try to escape after stealing. Issei. Okay, so you go and talk normally. Auden. Yes, as any leader should. Issei. Next time, if I'm still here, I'd like to go too. Auden. Well, I like your idea of the underground tunnel, but we haven't covered the other options. Issei. Do you think there will be a major attack? Auden. I don't know, they're so idiotic that sometimes they don't think and just attack, and other times they take their time. They're unpredictable. Issei. Haven't you tried putting up a barrier? Auden. There used to be one, but it was destroyed during an invasion. Issei. Where was it? Auden. Inside the castle. They destroyed it by luck, now that I think about it, but there wasn't much damage beyond that. Issei. A good idea would be to put up a mini barrier every 100 meters of wall, connected to a main one that provides energy. That way, they can recharge no matter how many attacks they suffer, and they'll have to destroy the main one if they want to enter from the air, because they already have the walls on the ground. Auden. They're more of an earth-based attacker, obviously. Issei. I know. Maybe I can cast some kind of spell using my power. It would take some time, but I could cover the entire capital against attacks. Auden. Really? Issei. Well, only on the outside. Inside, it would be very dangerous. Auden. Thank you for your help. You really make things easier here. Everything has been very calm and peaceful. Issei. Well, you're giving me a home. I should reciprocate. Auden. I appreciate it anyway. Issei. Do you want me to hold him? Auden. No, I'll stay a little longer. It'll give me a break. Auden shifted a bit in his chair with the sleeping baby in his arms and looked at him with a smile. Issei. By the way, isn't there a daycare here? Auden. No, we focus more on fighting, and when they have to take care of a baby, it's usually the grandmother of the family who does it if the parents aren't around. Issei. You should open one. I bet you'd get a good income, even outside. Just think about it. A daycare in Asgard, one of the safest places possible. Odin. I don't think so. It's more about tradition and culture than money. Issei. Well, you're the leader, you know. They both stopped talking and stared at the campfire until Odin suddenly fell asleep with the baby. Issei. Ah, well, I'll have to take her to my bed. Issei picked up Odin and she didn't let go of the baby for a second. Issei put them both in bed and Odin lightly covered the baby with her arm. Issei covered them both with a thick blanket because of the cold and left his house. He walked to a bakery and bought several pastries. He returned home and left them on the table. He checked that they were both asleep and brought his chair to his room and sat there. Since he didn't know what to do, he grabbed some fabric and started sewing. At first, he didn't know what to make, but then he began to understand and managed to make a small hat, which he put in a drawer. He started to doze off, and in the blink of an eye, he was asleep in his chair. About 10 minutes passed, and Odin woke up abruptly. Odin. Damn, I fell asleep. She turned around and saw the baby lying on the bed, but was surprised to see him there. She turned behind her and saw Issei sitting up asleep, so with some effort, she placed him on his bed. Odin. I'm hungry. Does he have any food? Odin left the room and noticed the desserts, so she ate one and returned. Eating the dessert made her even sleepier, so she lay down on the bed again, this time pressing her back against Issei's and holding the baby. 3 hours later. A knock on the door woke Issei, and he got out of bed, opened the door, and saw it was the soldier. Issei. Ah, you're back. That was quick. Soldier. Well, your training paid off. Issei. Let me go get the baby. Soldier. I'll wait here. Issei went to his room and picked up the baby, but Odin tightened his grip. Issei. Ugh, Odin, the baby's father is here. Let him go. Issei grabbed Odin's hand and pulled it away from the baby, left his room, and handed him the child. Soldier. Thank you so much, sir, really he bowed. Issei. You're welcome. Issei returned to his room and noticed Odin moving his hand around for the baby, so he gave him a pillow and left the house. He walked to the outside of Asgard's walls and grabbed a stick, which he used to draw a line around the perimeter of Asgard. It took him about 20 minutes, running at a leisurely pace. When he finished, he lit a flame and threw it onto the line. It immediately expanded and reached a considerable height, but Issei controlled it. He approached the flame, placed a hand over it, and began to speak. Issei. Your eternal flame, lend me your power to protect the defenseless, punish the sinners, and atone for them. Your power was made to protect and punish, so now protect these sacred grounds in my name and at my command. Only harm those with ill intentions and repel external attacks. Issei stopped speaking, and the flame rose up, covering Asgard, but then disappeared. Although Issei felt its energy, he made sure it didn't harm good people and returned home. On his way back, he sensed a strong presence outside Asgard, so he returned somewhat annoyed to the walls. Once outside, he saw a man about 2.10 meters tall. His skin was incredibly blue, almost transparent, and he had black eyes. He wore iron armor that covered his chest, legs, and groin. His arms were bare, and he carried a huge axe. Issei. I suppose you're one of those ice giants. Ice giant? Did you put up the barrier? Every time he spoke, fresh air escaped his mouth, and his voice was hoarse. Issei. Any problem? Ice giant. You're not Asgardian, so why protect them? Issei. Because I feel like it. The ice giant raised his axe and attacked Issei. Issei didn't move, and his shoulder took the full impact. When the ice giant raised his axe again, he saw that it had mostly melted, and Issei's fire appeared. It was a bright vivid red, like a flame itself. The Iceman tried to strike him, but Issei stopped the attack with his hand, beginning to melt his opponent's fist. The ice giant quickly severed his arm to prevent it from melting further, and a new one began to form. Issei. Regeneration. The ice giant only managed a single blow to his face, but Issei remained unfazed. The fire was beginning to take effect, and Issei swiftly grabbed the giant's arm, striking it from below and tearing it off. He then dropped the giant to the ground, forcing him to his knees before he could recover. Issei. No, it's not some kind of regeneration of yours. Simply because of the freezing temperatures, it merges with you, resulting in a new limb. The ice giant said nothing and tried to rise, but Issei punched him in the face, knocking him to the ground. Issei. Are more of your kind coming, or were you planning something else? Ice giant. Of course they'll come. Asgard will be ours. Before Issei could finish him off, a spear pierced his head, killing him instantly. Issei turned and saw Odin, his expression grave, walking toward the body and pulling out the spear. Issei. Did you sense his presence too? Odin. Yes, and I was also concerned by the fact that a barrier of fire covered all of Asgard. Issei. Did you see it? Odin. No, but when I woke up, I left your house and heard everyone talking about it, so I came to the main exit after sensing the power of an ice giant, but I see you were almost finished. Issei. So what are you going to do? Auden. I'll leave it to my men. If they're coming, they can handle it. We have fortified camps somewhat similar to yours all over the area. Issei. Fine, then I'll leave it to you. Issei began to draw a magic circle, but Auden stopped him. Auden. Are you leaving already? Issei. I'm going to the demon world. I need to check on something. But if I don't come back for a while, don't even think about taking my house. Auden. That's fine. It will still be yours. Have a good trip. Issei disappeared and Auden left. Upon arriving in the demon world, Issei noticed his house was still intact, which pleased him. He went inside and gathered some important things, but as he was about to leave, he noticed Sekiryuutei standing before him. Issei. Another problem? Sekiryuutei. No, it's just that I was put in charge of watching over your house, but when I saw the door open, I was about to check who was inside. Welcome back. Issei. I don't plan on staying long, and don't even think about demolishing this house. Sekiryuutei. You built it. It's yours. By the way, there's going to be a raiding game to see if we can promote some young demons. You might want to attend. Issei. When is it? Sekiryuutei. In a week. You can bring someone if you want. Issei. I'll think about it. It's been a long time since I've been to one. A week passed and Issei decided to attend. He had returned to Asgard to drop off his belongings and Auden decided to accompany him. He went to his castle and put on a white dress that slightly revealed his right leg. He wore a gold bracelet on his left wrist and a small gold necklace. Issei, on the other hand, was wearing his usual attire, which made Auden stare. Auden. Are you kidding? Issei. What? It also works as a suit. Auden. No one's going to believe that. Don't you have any other clothes? Issei. Nothing formal. Auden. Some guard must have something that fits you. Issei. I'm fine like this. Auden. Hey, dress in something classy. You're going to an important event, not just a raiding game. Several young demons will be promoted there. Issei. Oh, fine, you win. Minutes passed, and now Issei wore a black jacket with a matching vest and gold buttons, a white shirt, and black pants and shoes. Auden had tried to fix his hair a bit, but he didn't like it and ended up leaving it all messy as usual. Auden. That's better. Issei. Yeah, whatever. Can we go now? Auden. Yes, let's go. Auden took Issei's arm and transported them to the underworld. Once there, they went to the raiding game arena, but before entering, some guards led them to a VIP room where the mass, some representatives of the demon families, some angels, and a woman with black hair, red eyes, and fangs were gathered. She stared at Issei and Auden, but simply sat down next to her, and Auden sat next to him. Sina. Nice to meet you, demon of Purgatory. I'm Sina Teeps, current leader and representative of the vampires, though some don't exactly accept me, especially those from the Karnstein faction. Issei accepted the gesture and shook Sina's hand. Issei. Issei Haidu, call me as you wish. Sina. Wow, you look even more imposing up close. Issei. People tend to say I'm scary. Sina. In a way, I am creepy, especially that seriousness. Issei. That's a good thing. It's a pleasure to meet you. Issei turned around and started talking to Auden. At first, this offended Sina a little, but then she realized that she got along very well with Auden, so she decided to tease her a bit. Sina. So, are you two dating? Issei. No, we're just friends. Auden. Exactly. Sina. Oh, I see. They do look so cute together. Tell me something else, Haidu. Is it true that a dragon lives inside you? Issei. Yes, but it's a delicate matter. He doesn't like me. In fact, it's been about 2 months since I last spoke to him. Sina. And can he hear me? Issei. If he's awake, yes. Sina. Oh, that's incredible. Then that means you're someone very powerful. I'd like to spar with you sometime, in a friendly way, of course. Issei. No problem for me. I've already trained with Auden. Sina. Really? And who won? Issei. Me. Auden. We said it was a draw. Issei. Who was on the ground? Auden. Well, I'll just accept it this once. The three of them were talking when, out of nowhere, the raiding game began. Everyone focused their attention on the fight that was taking place. Many were enjoying it, but Issei had a look of displeasure on his face, as did Auden, Sina, and even one of the mass. This was all because there was a young demon who was boasting too much and making most of those watching uncomfortable. The representative of that family had his head bowed in a clear sign of shame and apologized to everyone in the room. At the end of the raiding game, all the young demons were in the arena eagerly awaiting their promotion. They hoped to have amazed the audience and demonstrated their skills to show that they had earned the promotion through hard training, although some hadn't trained as hard. The guard led everyone from the VIP room, including Issei, though he was reluctant, being taken by the arm by Auden. Everyone went downstairs and applauded the young demons. Mei-wan created an amplifying magic circle and placed it over his mouth to speak so that everyone could hear him. Mei. Now then, I have the honor of seeing with my own eyes that this generation of young demons has been strong, well-trained, and knows what they're doing. The path hasn't been easy, we know that. It demands a lot, but the reward is satisfying. We sincerely hope that not only those present here, but all demons, will do their utmost to maintain the peace that was lost for so long among all the factions, without prejudice or war. Finally arrest. Issei yawned a little, but Auden struck him with his elbow in the ribs, knocking the wind out of him since he was caught off guard. He pretended not to feel anything, but he was exhaling sharply to get more air. Auden continued watching the young people with a smile, since they noticed the light blow he gave Issei. Now, I would like to know if anyone would like to add a few words. Issei simply waited to leave, but one of the young people pointed at him. Demon. He doesn't seem very keen. Issei. Why don't I have them? Your fighting style in particular disgusts and makes me nauseous. It's like a ballerina who trips every 5 seconds. Besides, bragging about those mistakes doesn't mean you deserve that promotion. Everyone in the arena fell silent, but inside they felt the same as Issei. Auden only sighed a little, but Issei continued speaking. Issei. As for the others, I must say you did quite well, and I'd like to congratulate someone in particular, you, the young man with blonde hair, until the very end. Would you step forward? The young man tensed upon hearing Issei call him, but he obeyed. Issei walked slowly toward him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Issei. I loved your fighting style. Despite losing to someone like him, don't be discouraged. You have a lot of potential. You just neglected your rear guard, which is normal, but keep it up. Demon. Why yes, sir, thank you very much. The young demon was serious on the outside, but screaming with excitement on the inside. Although Issei didn't know it, his words carried a lot of weight, and many demons were clamoring for him to become a Mau, not only for his power, but also for how he treated people. Coldly, yes, but occasionally quite compassionate, which made him well liked and respected among the demons. The young man returned to the others, and when Issei had his back turned, he gave a small jump and then acted accordingly. Mau. Anything else? Issei returned to his place, and Auden leaned close to his ear. Auden. I thought you were going to scold him. Issei. Yes, I already said I wanted to congratulate someone in particular. Auden moved away from his ear and focused on paying attention to the ascent. Everyone was there, and the people in the VIP room were supposed to bless everyone. They formed a line, but when they reached the young man Issei had practically exposed to the public, he cut in line. Demon. You skipped me. Issei. I said you didn't deserve the promotion, I have no reason to bless you. The demon became angry and walked up to Issei, grabbed him by the shoulder, and pulled him around to face him. Demon. Maybe everyone else is praising you, but I detest you. You have no right to treat me like that. I am the next heir of the Citri clan, and I deserve respect. Issei turned to face the man who had been bowing his head, and now he was walking towards him. Mr. Citri. Please forgive my son. I will speak with him privately. Demon. Don't apologize, old man. It's not worth it. The demon spat in Issei's face, and he closed his eyes. He was about to leave, but Issei wiped the saliva from his face, grabbed the demon's arm, and forced him to look at him. His fire appeared, and Auden tried to stop him, but before he could take a step, Issei struck him in the chest with the palm of his hand. A flame erupted from behind the demon's body, quickly disappearing, and at that moment, the young demon was launched forward, smashing through the walls of the building. Issei stopped using some of his power and cleaned himself up thoroughly with a paper towel the guard handed him. Issei. Imbecile. Everyone in the arena was silent, and Auden simply sighed and approached him. Issei. He deserved it. Auden. I won't deny it, but you shouldn't have been so harsh. Issei. I was too lenient with him. If I'd wanted to, I could have ripped off one of his arms. Auden sighed, and the mask calmed the situation, though truthfully, everyone was on Issei's side, which made things easier. At the end of the day, Issei said goodbye to everyone and returned to Asgard with Auden. Once there, he changed into more comfortable clothes in his room and lay down to sleep and rest peacefully when he saw a magic circle form in front of him. Issei. This has to be a joke. I'm so tired. The letter emerged from the magic circle, and Issei read it lazily. Noticing it wasn't extremely important, he lay back down on his bed and decided to deal with it later. After a few minutes, Auden arrived and lay down next to him, covering him with a blanket, as did she, and fell asleep peacefully, as did Issei. Confrontation with Michael and relationship. Issei was resting peacefully in his Asgard home. The cold had finally subsided and he sat in his wooden chair watching people stroll by. A few greeted him and he returned the gesture out of politeness. He was so relaxed that he didn't notice a blonde-haired man approach him from his right and touch his shoulder. Issei took a sip of the fresh orange juice he had made himself and turned to look. The man was staring at him with a serious expression. Issei stood up and faced him. Issei. You're Michael, right? Michael? Yes, I'm the leader and representative of heaven now. I need to ask you something. Could you come with me? Issei. Okay. Issei stood beside Michael, who led him to a rather elegant castle. Torches illuminated the place, and several children could be seen flying by on bat wings. Issei gazed at the restored walls and noticed the many servants and workers. They reached the top of the tower, and upon entering a hall, Issei saw all the representatives of the supernatural world from their respective races. He didn't pay much attention to them, but what surprised him was seeing a human. Issei. Are you? Son. I am Sun Wukong, the descendant of the monkey god. Issei. I see. That explains the staff. Are there other humans who can use magical abilities like you? Son. I never said I could. Issei. I can sense your magical power easily. Son. Yes, there are several places. For example, the Pendragon clan lives in a castle, known for their incredible magical abilities. I think it was somewhere in Europe. There are other clans, but they are scattered throughout the human world. Issei. Interesting. Issei noticed that after he finished speaking, everyone looked at him seriously and Michaels indicated that he should sit down. Issei did so and Michaels sat down across from him. Michaels? Well, it is our duty to inform you that from today onward, you will be under 24-hour supervision, every day. Issei. What? Issei looked at Auden and she sighed. Auden. I objected to this, but it was decided by majority vote. Michaels. You see, we leaders cannot allow someone like you to go free. You are dangerous and you are ill. The mass told me so. Issei looked at them and they simply said that they had to share the information. Michaels. That is why you must wear this chain around your neck, which will tell us in real time what you are doing, whether you are angry, happy, or fighting. Furthermore, if you kill someone, it will notify us immediately and we will have to seal you away. The mass sighed at that, since they too had declined the idea along with Sina and a few others, but the rest had accepted. Sun stood up and took the chain and was about to put it on Issei, but Issei grabbed his arm. Issei. You lay a finger on me and you won't leave here alive. Issei looked at him seriously and took a few steps back. Issei stood up from the table and looked Michael in the eye. Issei. I'm not some dog for you to tell me what I do or don't do, and besides, I'm not going to accept this nonsense. I've been enslaved long enough. Michael. This isn't. He was interrupted. Issei. Shut your mouth, you animal. I'm talking. Michael stood up angrily and the other representatives did too. Issei glared at them all aggressively and more than half of them sat back down. Michael was about to approach him, but Auden got to Issei first. Auden. Calm down, Issei. Issei. No, I know you didn't vote for this, but I'm not going to accept it. Sina. She's right. If it only kills a few idiots, what difference does it make? Michael, we're not asking for opinions, miss. Issei. Didn't I tell you to shut up? Sina. What's with that attitude of yours? If I want to speak, I will, you idiot. You're not the one to tell me what to do. Michael. I am the representative of heaven. I am watching out for everyone's safety. Issei. Then you shouldn't have brought me. Issei's flames appeared rapidly and were black. Michael created a magic circle of protection, but Issei quickly destroyed it with his fist, while with his other hand, he created a fiery dagger which he plunged into his rival's side. Michael grabbed his arm and flew using his 12 wings. Issei began to strike him with his other hand without letting go of the dagger. They reached a considerable height and Michael removed the dagger from his body. Issei was beginning to descend when a divine beam created by Michael struck him, accelerating his fall to the maximum. This destroyed a small part of the mountain and Issei was on the ground. Michael quickly found him and dove down to gain more speed. Just centimeters from the ground, he created a spear and began to fly towards Issei, who was getting up. From behind, he managed to bury the spear of light and continued its path until it crashed into a stone wall, which it destroyed. Michael waited for the smoke caused by the destruction to subside and upon seeing Issei on the ground, approached him, tried to touch him, but he had a fire sword with which he pierced himself to bury it a little in Michael's brow. He took a few steps back and healed himself, while Issei pulled the sword out of himself and healed quickly. The others were thinking of intervening, but were stopped by Sina, Auden and the mass. The battle between Michael and Issei continued, though unfortunately for Michael, he was weak against Issei on the ground, as Issei was a master of hand-to-hand combat, his fists leaving burns with every blow. Michael summoned another divine lightning bolt, striking Issei in the chest and knocking him to the ground. He quickly took flight, but his wings were caught by a fiery scythe with chains. Issei tore off one of his wings, and Michael felt a sharp pain, collapsing to the ground. He got back up, leaning against a tree, and upon hearing Issei's footsteps, created an arc of light with which he fired blessed arrows. Several of these struck Issei in the chest, but he deflected them effortlessly. Enraged, Michael combined a divine lightning bolt with a blessed arrow. Issei was surprised and rushed towards him. When he stood before Michael with his fiery sword, Michael fired, and the explosion sent Issei flying a considerable distance. Michael, however, used a magic circle for protection. Teleporting to the castle, he shot another identical arrow from the tip and searched for Issei, but couldn't find him. He was so focused that he didn't feel when Issei plunged a fire axe into his shoulder from behind. Michael screamed in pain and turned to face Issei, but Issei kicked him in the stomach, knocking him down. The axe vanished, leaving the wound exposed. Issei jumped and created fire kunai, throwing them at Michael. Some hit, but they were just a distraction, as Issei then created a sharper fire kunai attached to a chain and threw it. It struck Michael in the chest, causing a massive wound, and he plummeted to the ground. Just as he was about to hit the ground, he turned and yanked the chain hard, causing Michael to slam headfirst into the earth. There was a small crack, and the weapon disappeared. Issei got up as he watched Michael slowly rise from the ground and created a fire scythe. With the blade, he lifted Michael up and was about to decapitate him, but he jumped slightly, dodging the attack. Michael summoned a blessed sword and began fighting Issei. Issei took advantage of having a long weapon, easily blocking attacks. At one point, Issei caught Michael's attack and extended his scythe, knocking him down. Michael was on his knees, and Issei spun his scythe to gain speed and easily decapitate him, but at that moment, Michael pointed the hilt of his sword at Issei, and a powerful divine beam struck him. Issei was sent flying while Michael recovered. After a few seconds in the air, Issei began to fall, and Michael intercepted his landing spot. He waited patiently for the right moment, and when Issei's body was about to touch the ground, he tried to plunge his sword into his chest. Issei simply twisted his body, landing on his feet, and using the sharp edge of his scythe, he made a cut from the stomach down, almost reaching the neck, which opened and began to gush blood. Michael dropped the sword and fell to his knees, using both hands to try to close the large wound. After a few seconds, he began to use his angel abilities to heal himself, but Issei kicked him, leaving him lying face up on the ground. Issei created a sword, and when he was about to kill him, a Mau stopped him. Mau 2. Heaven has already lost so much, and this will leave them defenseless. Don't kill him, I beg you. Issei glared at him angrily, but then Odin appeared with his friend Sina, and they both calmed him down. Issei looked at Michael, who was dying, healing his wounds. He grabbed him by the neck, and a tail of bones, ablaze with black fire, appeared, as did his skull and hands. The Mau was about to stop him, but Odin prevented him. Odin. Look what he's going to do. Fire began to pour from Issei's mouth, healing the wound until it closed. After that, Michael fell to the ground unconscious, and Issei glared angrily at several of the representatives. Sun approached Michael and carried him to the castle. Issei was about to leave, but Odin stopped him. Odin. I know you're tired of talking to them, but we can reach an agreement. Leave it to me, but follow me. Issei sighed and followed Odin, though he was still in his skeletal dragon form. His claws were sharp, and his teeth were even sharper. Bone claws sprouted from his feet, destroying his shoes, but he would repair them later. Issei walked beside Odin and Sina. When they reached the top of the castle, Michael was on the ground recovering, while Issei sat next to Odin. She was feeling a bit warm due to Issei's transformation, so she asked him to stop, and he agreed. Now in his human form, everyone was more at ease. Issei. So, what's the deal? Odin. Be free, as long as you don't hurt any innocent people, okay? Issei. If that's the deal, then for my sake, Odin. Perfect. Everyone in favor. Some raised their hands while others hesitated. Issei grew angry and stood up. Issei. Or do you want to end up worse than him? One of the men stood up aggressively and spoke. I refuse to accept that someone like him is roaming the world and doing whatever he wants. Issei. Then you should die. Odin. Enough. If I am not mistaken, you are the representative of the dwarven blacksmiths. Most of your people work for me and accept it without question and are very grateful to him. So what? Odin. I will make the decision for you, so shut up and sit down. The man sat down angrily, and Issei did too, but more calmly. The conversation continued until they reached the agreement established from the beginning by Odin. Everyone said their goodbyes, and Odin and Issei walked through the human world for a while until they found an alley and returned to Asgard. They stood before the walls but decided to wander through the markets and shops of Asgard for a time until Issei asked him something he had been wondering about for a long time. Issei. Why do you support me so much? Auden. Well, before I came to ask for your help, I was told about everything you had suffered and I was surprised that someone like you existed. I mean, I never knew that kind of suffering, mostly physical, but nothing on a psychological level like yours. At first, I wanted you to be part of the Asgardian army and I wanted to help you overcome it. It was like a challenge for me. But then I understood that I didn't need to help you with that because you alone overcame many barriers and I decided to get closer to you to learn everything I could from someone like you and it was quite a lot. I understood how to appreciate small details and I managed to become a better person. Issei listened attentively to what Auden was saying. Night fell and they were both in a small park. Lanterns hung high above, illuminating the area and a large tree added to the light. Issei sat beside Auden as they watched people pass by. He was lost in thought until he felt his hand being taken. He turned to Auden, who thanked him for everything he had taught her. Seeing her like that, Issei smiled slightly. He hadn't felt such peace and tranquility from a simple gesture in so long. For some reason, seeing her smile pleased him and calmed him. He was about to reply when he remembered what his human father had told him a long time ago. Flashback. Issei was cutting down some trees when his father arrived. Father. Hey, now that I think about it, you've never mentioned a girl. Don't you have a girlfriend? Issei. I'm not interested in that. Father. Well, it must be because you haven't found the right person to spend the rest of your days with. Issei. And when will I know? Father. You'll realize it easily. You'll talk to her so calmly, you'll listen to her, you'll want to protect her from any danger and be by her side, hug her, or simply hold her hands. You'll enjoy every little moment as if it were the greatest in the universe and you won't want to leave her side. It will be the first time your heart races when you're with the right woman. Issei just listened while continuing to work, but he didn't pay it any mind. Present. Issei gazed into Auden's eyes, which sparkled in the surrounding lights. Her white hair resembled snow, and she was beautiful. Her black dress, adorned with gold accessories, captivated him, and he couldn't tear his gaze away from those bright red eyes. Without realizing it, he gently cupped her cheek and drew his face closer to hers, and she did the same. They kissed with their eyes closed as others watched. After a few seconds, they separated and the crowd erupted in applause. They both laughed at the applause and held hands, gazing at the night sky. After a few minutes, they stood up, still holding hands, and went to Issei's house. He was still pondering his feelings. Issei. So this is love, it's quite nice. Issei leaned closer to Auden's face again and gave her another kiss. He felt his heart start beating strongly again, but not because he was in danger or anything like that. It was beating so fast because he was next to the woman who made him happy. Issei. Yes, it definitely is. Issei smiled and Auden simply placed a finger to his lips and chuckled softly. Issei. Well, old man, it seems I've already granted one of your wishes, although I don't think you'll be around much longer. Before arriving at Issei's house, they both reached the castle, and the guards noticed they were holding hands, so they quickly stepped aside and let them pass. Issei. And why did we come? Auden. Well, now that we're a couple, she was interrupted. Issei. I haven't formally asked you, and I want to. Issei approached her, took both her hands, and asked, will you be my partner? Auden readily accepted, and they kissed in the center of the castle where everyone could see them. Some guards smiled, while others applauded. The cooks quickly went to prepare a banquet for the new couple. Auden. Now, continuing as I was saying, now that we're a couple, I want to live with you fully, so I'll bring clothes, weapons, armor, and everything else. Issei. Okay, then I'll have to build another room. Auden. We won't sleep in the same room. Issei. Are you sure? I mean, the bed is a bit small, but… Auden. That's no problem. We can make a bigger one. Issei. Besides, I'll have to create more places to store clothes, and by the way, about the armor, I don't think you should leave it inside. Auden. You have a small plot of land on the backside. We could build a large furnace there and make a forge for weapons and armor. Issei. You really do think of everything. Auden, with Issei's help, began packing some of his clothes into several wooden boxes. Once they finished, they closed them, and Issei carried them home. He hid them under the bed for the time being and returned to the castle. The cooks quickly led him to the table where Auden was sitting, and they said their goodbyes. Issei. You all seem quite excited. Auden. Yes, people are fond of you, and now that they know we're a couple, the news will spread quickly. Issei. I have no problem with that. I've never felt this way before. Auden. Well, let's enjoy this for now. They continued having dinner and toasting for the rest of the night. Hours passed and they both arrived at what was now their home, but Auden was somewhat drunk because she had drunk too much. Issei laid her down on the bed and closed the front door. He went and lay down next to Auden and put an arm around her waist. Feeling Issei's arm, Auden unconsciously turned around, looking him in the face, and with one hand she stroked his hair and they fell asleep. Several months passed, during which they explored various places and enjoyed their relationship, which had become public knowledge. Although there were occasional minor setbacks because many women wanted to get close to Issei, Auden didn't quite approve. She was jealous, she had to admit, but she knew how to control it fairly well, except when things crossed the line. One of the people who most infuriated her was her friend Sina. Upon learning they were a couple, Sina immediately asked Issei if he was open to having more partners. Issei remained silent for his own good, while Auden wore a disapproving expression, though she tried to hide it. Issei. Why do you ask? Sina. Well, polygamy is quite common in the supernatural world, you should already know that. Auden was supposed to help me get closer to you, and she ended up being your partner. Issei. Well, I've been through a lot with her. Sina. So, if I move in with you, might you accept me as your partner? Issei. Hey, calm down. At that, Auden approached and moved Issei aside. Auden. The house is quite small. It's better if there are just two of us. Sina. Don't worry, I'm not jealous. Besides, I can help build my room until Issei gets used to my presence and can sleep with me. Auden began to get angrier upon noticing his friend's serious tone, but Issei calmed her down. Issei. And why are you so interested in being my partner? Sina. It's obvious. You're strong, handsome, incredibly serious, and you protect those you love. Who wouldn't want to be your partner? Come on, say yes. Issei. I'm not against any of your beliefs, but I don't know if I'm a big fan of having more than one partner. Auden. Are you not sure? Sina. So that's a glimmer of hope. I've decided I'll come live with you. Issei. Hey, I didn't give any permission. Sina. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. I'm a good cook. Issei. Me too. Sina. Then we can split the days. I bet Auden isn't exactly a great cook. Auden. That's none of your business. Sina. Besides, I can help you with the housework. We could even train together and improve. Issei. I already train with Auden. Sina. Then you'd be better off with some extra help. Besides, not everyone trains the same way. Issei. That's a good point. Auden. What do you mean, good point? And so several more months passed, specifically 1 year and 8 months of Issei and Auden's relationship and about 10 months since Sina's proposal. After so much time, Issei finally succumbed and ended up accepting. Auden didn't take it very well at first, but then resigned himself to it. Sina. Wow, it's a very nice house. It's small but cozy. Issei. Well, for now I'll build your room, so I'll go get materials. Since I don't think I'll finish it soon, you can sleep with Auden and I'll sleep in the living room. Issei left the house and Sina began to unpack her things. While she was doing that, she noticed a thin hair on the bed and picked it up. Sina. Is this what I think it is? Auden snatched it from her hand and burned it in the fireplace. Sina. Was it Issei's? Auden. That doesn't matter. Sina. Come on, we're adults. It's normal for couples to do their own thing. Besides, you two have been together for almost 2 years. Auden. Look, we're good friends, but let's get something straight. I like you and all, but we're talking about Issei. He's my partner. Sina. But he already said he was okay with polygamy. Auden. Ugh, look, please, since you're going to live here, help me out. Sina. Huh? What? Auden. If you really want to be his partner because of his kind and human side, I have no problem with that. But if it's because he's really strong, then she's interrupted. Sina. I might not have told you, but he came to me several times for advice on how to handle your relationship. There was a time when he came every day and we became good friends. I got to know a more human side of him and I want to get to know him completely. I felt so good because I could be myself, someone extroverted and cheerful who likes to enjoy afternoons with her friends without anyone telling me I should be more serious because of my status. He simply accepted me and laughed at how I was, but not in an offensive way. He liked that there were cheerful people like me who saw the world differently. Issei is truly a great person and I want to get to know him thoroughly. Auden listened attentively to her friend's words and knew that what she had just heard carried a lot of weight. When she became the representative of her race, she had faced many problems due to her extroverted personality and very few people accepted her for who she was. Therefore, knowing that Issei accepted her without question and considered her his friend must have meant a great deal to her. Auden. Okay, I'll accept it, but don't you dare spy on us during our private moments. Sina. Hey, relax, I don't plan on doing that unless you're really going at it and we can hear you all the way to my room. They both laughed and Sina started cooking something. Issei arrived sweating as it was quite hot and took off his shirt. He placed some ice he had brought on the way on his back until it melted. He left the house under Sina's watchful eye, but he didn't notice and began building the room. Sina occasionally passed by and glanced at Issei, since he wasn't wearing his shirt. His beard was now rather long, and his hair was messy. Auden. Hey, the food's going to burn. Sina. It's for you, no problem. Issei continued building the room until night fell, then he stopped. He changed into more comfortable clothes and began eating with the two of them. Afterward, he sat outside his house in his wooden chair and watched the sunset for a few minutes. Sina. What's he doing? Auden. Well, he has a habit of going out at night and talking to himself outdoors. He thinks that way, perhaps his human parents and his real parents, whom he doesn't remember, will hear him. Sina. He really is an amazing person. I'll go make the bed. Auden. Okay, I'll draw a bath. While Sina made the bed and prepared for sleep, Issei lay down on the sofa and fell asleep. Sina turned off the fireplace and dusted the living room and kitchen. She went out to check on his room and was surprised to see how much progress he had made in just one day. She returned and saw him asleep, so she took his hand and rested her forehead on it. Sina. Thank you for everything. She got up and went to the room where she would sleep, unaware that Auden was watching her with a smile. First time in Purgatory and Orcs. Issei found himself in the human world. The reason for this was Sun Wukong's doing, or rather, Sun Wukong's doing him a favor. Lately, several men and women from the hero clan, which was just beginning to emerge thanks to him to defend the earth from supernatural beings, had disappeared. At first, they only went to look for one man, but in that same area, even more people who went to his rescue vanished. Issei was quickly summoned and had to leave his house, although Sina and Auden had stayed behind. Issei was now in the designated area, a forest. It was night, but he used a flame to light his way. It was quite weak since he didn't want to burn anything. He continued walking until, for a few seconds, he saw a strange light. He sensed some magical power, so he used his dragon sight, an ability he had developed to identify magical barriers. It was very common for important places to be hidden within them, either with a spell that made the place invisible to humans or weak supernatural beings, or it was simply a barrier that had protected him from attacks. There were several types. Issei didn't notice anything strange, so he thought it was a protective barrier. He approached, and upon touching it, his flames immediately began to rise, though they were red. Issei lightly struck the barrier, and for a second, his flames traveled along a stretch of lines, but when he withdrew his fist, they dissipated. Issei placed his hand over it, and the flames quickly surrounded the entire barrier. After that, a kind of rupture appeared in front of him, and he entered. Upon entering, he began to smell horrible, as if there were a rotting body. He continued walking and found a pile of corpses arranged in a row. Issei decided to burn them. He was about to leave and inform the clan members of what had happened and warn them not to approach when he saw a grey silhouette in front of him. Its red eyes stared at him seriously. Issei stopped in front of it as it had the body of a woman. She was somewhat shorter than him, her arms were crossed, and they could see several marks around his body, red like his eyes. Issei took a step, but the woman stopped him. Are you the one they call the demon of Purgatory? Issei. It's a nickname they gave me. I am the Lady and Queen of Purgatory. By what right do you deserve to bear that title? Issei. Look, I don't care. It's just a nickname, a moniker they gave me. Although, from what I see, if you say you're the Lady and Queen of Purgatory and this place has a barrier. He was interrupted. That's right. This place has a strong connection to Purgatory. With the right spell, you can enter, although I can't guarantee you'll be able to leave. Issei. And why are they dead? If a weak soul stained with sin enters, it dies immediately. However, if a strong and powerful presence like yours enters, I will personally analyze it. Issei. I see. Then step aside and let me pass. I want to go home. Issei moved her without much force. For a moment, he stopped as his foot was caught by something. He turned to look at the woman, and a red light appeared in both her hands, and her eyes shone even brighter. You will go to Purgatory with me. The woman created chains that emerged from the ground and trapped Issei. He used his magic power, and multicolored flames appeared, but it was too late. The chains dragged him until they reached a strange place. It had several kinds of houses. It was somewhat like the human world, only everything was tinged with red. There was a large empty space stained with blood in the center, and he noticed that there were souls inside. The place you see is Purgatory. This is the strongest point where the most powerful souls rest and try to rid themselves of their sins. You will be here when I strip you of your body so you can heal. The woman recreated those chains, but Issei grabbed them with one hand and destroyed them. Issei. Look, I can deduce that the simple fact that this place doesn't burn is either a very powerful place or the laws of physics don't apply. It's the former. Apparently, your power makes other souls stay away. Issei. Take me home now. The woman walked to him and Issei looked at her, somewhat annoyed. She looked him up and down and turned him around. Minutes passed and Issei grew impatient and grabbed her shoulders to look her in the eyes. That's when he realized she was wandering through his memories, so he shook her. Issei. Don't enter my head without my permission. Wait, give me a few more seconds. I'm almost at your childhood. I need to check something. The woman grabbed his cheeks and Issei, feeling no hostility, simply let her. After all, he wouldn't find anything interesting. After a few seconds, the woman stepped back, surprised, and took his hand. Follow me. Issei. Hey, wait, what did you see? The woman went upstairs to a castle. It seemed to be her home, as there were portraits of her. The walls were black with touches of red. They arrived at what appeared to be a library. Of all the shelves, she went to the one in the center, chained up, and destroyed it. From it, she took out a book and Issei waited, as she didn't seem to hear him. After flipping through it, the woman found a page and approached him to show it. Do you remember what this is? Issei. It looks like a bloodstain. Excellent. Issei. Anyone would have told you the same. Okay, now if I turn it upside down. Issei. It's still a bloodstain. And sideways. Issei. Same thing. What are you trying to prove? Okay, now for the final test. The woman turned the page and Issei's eyes widened in surprise. There was a portrait of several people. Among them was a boy with brown hair, a couple with the same hair color, each holding one of the boy's shoulders, and next to the boy was a girl who looked remarkably like the woman in front of him because their skin and eyes were the same color. Beside them was another couple, but they looked more like the previous couple than the girl. Issei. I vaguely remember this picture. Issei tried to recall, but his head began to throb as usual. The woman gripped one of his hands tightly and leaned close to his ear. Remember. As the woman whispered this, she placed a finger on his forehead and a flash blinded Issei. When he opened his eyes, he saw for a few moments the same couple with a child. The child was running toward them as they watched him happily. Mother I. Come quickly, Issei. Father I. It's almost time for you to go practice with the other children. Issei. I'm coming, Dad, Mom. The child grabbed both adults' hands, but no matter how hard Issei tried to get closer, he couldn't see their faces. They were just black faces. Another flash illuminated him, but now it was the same child from the portrait, bleeding on the ground, while the girl from the portrait placed her hand on his large wound. Girl. What do you see? Issei. Blood. Girl. And upside down. Issei. Blood. Girl. And sideways. Issei. Blood. I don't understand what you're trying to explain. The girl was about to answer, but she ran away as the man who had injured her friend approached her. Her parents defended her and told her to run home. After that, she noticed Issei's parents arrive and finish off the angel. Another flash blinded him, but now he saw the woman. She was patiently waiting for him to answer and Issei grabbed her shoulders. Issei. What did you do to me? I showed you your memories, although from what I can see, it's impossible for you to see your parents' faces. Issei sat down in a chair and held his head. For a few moments, he thought about asking her more questions, but he calmed down. The woman stood beside him and took his hand. Akatsuki. I'm Akatsuki. You're Haidu Issei, right? Issei. Yes. Issei paused for a few seconds to process everything he had seen. Without thinking, he lightly squeezed Akatsuki's hand and she simply patted him a few times on the back. Issei cupped his face with his other hand and stood up. Issei. Well, so you showed me part of my childhood. Thank you for that, but I still have my questions. Akatsuki. If I can answer them, go ahead. Issei. I suppose you're the girl who appeared in my memories, right? Akatsuki. That's right. Issei. Then I've known you for a long time. Wow, how did you come to own all of this? Akatsuki. At one point, a powerful force was released from within me and transported me here. I lived here for a while. I was about 30 years old. But after the mass came looking for me and tried to take me out, the three-headed guardian dog prevented them from freeing me. It wasn't until I stood in front of it and tamed it that it let us out. It was then that we all understood that I belong here, although I can leave without problems, since a copy of me is created to do the work. Issei. I see. It's difficult to process all this, but thank you. Issei left and Akatsuki quickly followed him. He was looking for a way to leave until Akatsuki stopped him. Akatsuki. Don't you want to stay and talk? I mean, we were very good friends. Issei. I have to go to Odin and tell him this. Akatsuki. Are you talking about the Norse goddess? Issei. That's right, she's my partner. Can you get me out of here? Upon hearing that, Akatsuki considered refusing but instead responded with a smile. Akatsuki. Fine, but I'm going with you. Issei. Go ahead, it'll be better. After that, we can talk as much as you want. Akatsuki created a magic circle and they appeared in the place where they had been before. Then Issei created another, arriving at his house. Seeing the light, Auden went outside and found Issei holding Akatsuki's hand. At this, Auden dropped the glass of water he was drinking from and Sina went to investigate because of the noise, becoming equally shocked. Sina. Didn't you have doubts about polygamy? Sina grabbed him by the collar of his shirt but Issei picked her up with one hand and sat her on the sofa. Auden, on the other hand, grabbed his arm and pulled him towards her. Auden. We've only been together for 3 years and you're already bringing another woman home. I had enough with Sina trying to spy on us when we were doing it. At this, Akatsuki smiled but she was seething inside. Issei tried to calm Auden down by saying she was a childhood friend, which only made her explode. Auden. So now you bring your childhood friend, who's known you longer than I have. Issei. And what's wrong with that? Sina. What do you mean, what's wrong with that? Akatsuki. I see you have a family now, Issei. At this, the two stopped shouting, sighed, and approached her. Auden. I'm Auden, Issei's partner. Sina. I'm Sina, I'm in the process of becoming his partner. Issei. Ah, I don't understand what you're talking about, but I brought her here so you could meet her. She helped me remember several things, for which I'm very grateful. Auden. I see. In that case, there's no problem. Auden politely greeted Akatsuki and she sat down at the table at Issei's request. He began cooking something, as Auden had told him he was hungry, while Sina helped him. The two women felt somewhat uncomfortable and looked around in every direction except straight ahead. Akatsuki glanced at Issei and Auden noticed, so she pretended to cough. Akatsuki obviously understood this but didn't seem to care much. When they finished cooking, Issei served the dishes and thanked Sina for her help. Everyone began to eat and Issei, somewhat excited, asked if she could tell him about himself as a child. Akatsuki. Well, you were quite cheerful. Even though I scared the other boys and girls our age because of my appearance, you were never afraid of me, so I thank you for that. It meant a lot to me, well, it still does. Issei listened attentively to Akatsuki's stories. After several minutes, everyone finished eating and Issei cleared the plates. He continued talking with Akatsuki until he noticed it had gotten dark. Akatsuki. I think it's best if I go. It was a pleasure meeting you. Auden. Sina. Likewise. Issei. Well, I'll walk her home. I don't know how long it will take. Issei disappeared through a magic circle along with Akatsuki. Right after he disappeared, Auden broke the chair she was sitting on and began breathing heavily. Sina. You weren't even like this when I came here. Auden. She's a childhood friend. She knows more than I do and it's obvious she likes me. Sina. And what's wrong with that? Auden. I was just getting used to your presence. Sina. But we lived together for a while. Auden. But I didn't have a partner. If they end up becoming a couple, then I won't know what to do. Sina. Well, they'll have to remodel the house. If he keeps bringing people over, they'll have to make it bigger. Auden. That's true. Oh, I have nothing against him seeing more places and meeting more people, but I'm afraid that one day he'll meet someone better than me. Sina. Oh, that's easy. He already knows someone better than you. At this, Auden got angry but decided to calm down and pick up the pieces of the chair. Sina. You don't cook, you don't clean, you mostly try to train with him, and to top it all off, sometimes you don't want to go with him on missions. Auden. But I hear him, I'm attentive to what he wants or asks of me. Sina. And do you think he's going to ask you for everything he wants? He's not like that. It's obvious he loves you, Auden. I've noticed it. Once I woke up in the middle of the night and saw the door open, which worried me. I got up slowly, and there he was, sitting in his chair looking at the moon. I thought about talking to him and asking what he was doing, but when I saw how he was holding the gold chain you wear around your neck from time to time and looking at it with so much love, I was surprised. I was about to leave, but he sensed my presence and asked me to sit next to him. Auden. And what happened next? Sina. Well, there were many things, but the most important was that he thanked me for coming. He said it was amazing how his life had changed since we two arrived. You can tell he's a serious person who doesn't show his feelings much. He represses them. I noticed he was smiling, and when he realized it, he quickly put on a serious face and turned away. He's happy to have met you, and so am I. That's why when I saw him smile so cheerfully and carefree about meeting someone from his past, I enjoyed it so much. Auden just laughed at that and threw away the trash. He sat next to Sina and thanked her. Auden. Me too. It's just that, well, as you said, I don't do many things here to help. Sina. But the few things you do help a lot. Keep it up. I'm sure I wouldn't trade you for anything in the world. Auden. Thank you, Sina. You're a great friend. Sina. Yes, of course I am. Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to take a shower and go to sleep. I've been very tired. Saina got up and stretched. Auden simply decided to start making another chair with the wood they had outside the house. Issei said goodbye to Akatsuki, who told him she would visit him often. He responded graciously and proceeded to leave the barrier. He was walking calmly to clear his mind when he saw a torch in the distance moving rather quickly, so he guessed it was someone running. He didn't pay much attention to it, but he became alert when he heard the leaves on the ground being stepped on. He turned around, sensing a faint amount of magical power, and felt something bump against his chest. He used a flame to illuminate the area and saw that it was a woman with pale skin. She wore a dress the same color as her skin with very fine, almost gray-black lines. The dress was divided into 3 parts. The torso and the 2 arms. These were decorated with black touches at the beginning and end of the sleeves. She wore white boots of the same color and pattern. Her legs were bare, but in her arms she held a child who looked just like her. The child had a circular piece of fabric in her hair, and the woman wore a black leather garment with 2 white lines. Before reaching the at the tip, the woman panicked, her hands growing to enormous sizes and resembling wide iron claws. Issei noticed the claw approaching, but he stopped it easily. Issei. Are they chasing you? The woman simply nodded, and Issei sighed. Issei. Well, from what I can see, you seem to be some kind of orc. Do you live around here? We don't have a home. Issei. Ah, why does it always have to be so complicated? Man. There's the monster. Issei only heard him calling to his companions and, without turning around, stretched out his arm in the direction the man was standing. A chain shot out at great speed and caught him. Issei pulled on it and grabbed the man by the neck. He turned with a serious expression and then flames appeared, glowing red. Issei. What monster are you talking about? Before judging, Issei used his sinful eye's ability to verify the man's identity, realizing he was a thief and attempted rapist. After verifying, Issei placed a hand in front of the girl's eyes, not too close to burn her, and spat fire from his mouth, killing the man instantly. Issei released the corpse, and the other men arrived. Issei used his ability again and confirmed they were all like him. He simply created a fire sword and killed them all, while the woman covered her daughter's eyes. When he finished, Issei offered the woman his hand, but she refused, still in her fiery form. Issei said, "Don't worry, I can control it. If I don't want to, I won't burn you." The woman swallowed and slowly took Issei's hand, making sure it wouldn't burn. Seeing her mother touch her hand, the little girl quickly approached her skeletal face and touched it with both hands. Her mother screamed in fright and quickly pulled away, only to realize she wasn't hurt at all. The woman bowed to Issei, who was about to leave when the girl managed to grab onto his shoulders. Issei. Oh, come on, get down, you could hurt yourself. Instead of getting down, the girl climbed onto Issei's shoulders and held her hands near the fire. Issei raised his head slightly, and the girl smiled at him. If Issei had a weakness, it was his family, and he couldn't say no to children unless they were very naughty or throwing tantrums. The girl laughed, and Issei sighed. Issei. You said you were homeless. Can you speak properly, or is that all you ever say? Why yes, I can speak well, but I don't do it much because I have no one to talk to. Issei. Do you want to come to my house? There are other people there, but they won't say anything to you. The woman hesitated, but seeing how comfortable her daughter was, she decided to accept. Issei took her by the shoulder and teleported to his house. When they arrived, the woman's eyes widened in surprise, as it was a very cozy house. The girl quickly jumped down from his shoulders and ran to the fireplace. She was about to put her hand in, but Issei managed to catch her and picked her up. Issei. That fire is normal. It burns. Hearing Issei speak, Auden came out with Saina, and both were stunned by what they saw. The woman, noticing their stares, hid behind Issei. Saina. I thought you were the first. Issei. Let me explain. She is what's your name? Takara. I'm Takara. Issei. Well, the thing is, I was coming back home, but I decided to walk for a few minutes to think. I saw a torch go by, but I didn't think much of it. A moment later, I sensed some magic power, so I turned around in case they were trying to attack me. But Takara bumped into me, and I defended her from whoever was after her. Saina. Oh, I see. And I suppose she's homeless. Issei. Exactly. So, Saina, I hope you can sleep with Auden so they can sleep in your room. Saina. I don't mind, but you'll have to expand the house if you plan on bringing more people. Auden. Well, if that's the case, I don't see any problem. Welcome for however long you're staying. Takara. I heard you say bed. I'm fine sleeping outside. Issei. Maybe so, but if you're in my house, that's not allowed. So, you and she will sleep in one room and in a comfortable bed. Issei crouched down and touched the girl's nose, and she giggled. Takara crouched down and bowed. Afterward, he opened the bedroom door and didn't want to go in, but the three of them insisted, so he finally gave in. They all lay down, Issei on the sofa, but around midnight he felt someone lie down on his chest. At first, he thought it was Auden, but when he felt it was a rather small body, he lifted the blanket covering him and realized it was the girl. He smiled slightly and remembered everything that had happened that day and about his childhood. Issei. Nobody deserves a childhood like mine. I'd rather be pierced by an archangel with a weapon. Issei lifted the girl so as not to suffocate her with the blanket and went back to sleep. The next day. Issei got up and noticed the little girl was bouncing on his stomach. He simply caught her in midair and set her down. He went to wash his face and opened Sina's bedroom door, finding Takara asleep. Issei. Go to your mother. Issei stepped aside and the little girl ran in and lay down in her mother's arms. He slowly closed the door and opened his own bedroom door, finding Auden and Sina hugging. He chuckled a little before closing it. He left the house to buy food and was on his way home when a guard rushed toward him. Guard. Haidu-sama, there's a problem. Issei. What is it? He had gotten used to being called that, even though it annoyed him. Guard. Well, a man appeared a few hours ago and asked for you. We told him you weren't here and he said he would return today as soon as he sensed your power. Issei. I see. If he comes, tell him I'll be at my house. Guard. Understood. The guard left and Issei, without further ado, went home to start preparing breakfast. The Kryuko weekend clan of heroes. Issei was waking up feeling tired since he hadn't slept much the day before. He got up when he saw the sun's rays and took a bath. When he came out, everyone else was already up, so he simply went into his room to get dressed. As he left, Issei noticed that Takara was helping Sina cook while Auden played with a little girl in the living room. Issei approached the two of them cooking and realized that Takara didn't know much about it. Issei. Why do you want to learn to cook? Takara. Well, if you're being so kind as to give me a home, it's the least I could do. I could help with the housework or go out to buy things. Issei. Hey, I'm not one to force you to do anything. If you want to do it, I'd be happy to, but don't feel obligated. Takara. I want to. Seeing that she said it so seriously, as if waiting for his approval, Issei just sighed. Issei. If that's what you want, I won't stop you. Thank you very much in advance. Takara smiled and turned to watch Sina cooking. Issei approached Auden and the little girl, ruffling her hair slightly. Instead of getting angry, the girl smiled and quickly climbed up Issei's body as if it were a wall, landing on his shoulders. Issei. I'm going out for a moment. I'll take the girl with me. Takara. Okay. Issei went outside and the little girl admired everything around her as Issei walked along without any trouble. When people saw him carrying the girl on his shoulders, they asked if she was his daughter. He replied that it was a complicated situation, but that he was taking care of her. They continued walking until they reached a large building. Issei went inside and just then, a man somewhat shorter than him approached. Man. It's good that you're here, Haidu-sama. That man has been waiting for you since we opened. Issei. I see. Don't worry, just carry on with your work. Issei took a few steps toward the table until the thin man stopped him. Man. You're just going to talk, right? Issei. If you don't provoke me, then yes. The man sighed and Issei continued on his way. He reached the table and sat the girl down in a chair. Man. Why are you putting her there? Issei. Because I want to. What did you want from me? Man. Are you the Sekiryuutei? Issei. If you're asking about the dragon that lives inside me, then yes. The man stood up. He had white hair and a beard. He turned around, but Issei didn't look at him. After looking him over, the man stood in front of him. Man. They said you were an imposing figure. I don't see it that way. Issei. Look, I don't have much time. I only came to see what you wanted and then I'll leave. If you're going to keep playing around with your nonsense, I'd better go. Man. Well, I don't know if you know, but as the wielder of the red dragon fist, we must fight. Issei. Why? Man. We are destined to hate each other. It's simple. The dragons within us are enemies and therefore, as their means of being here, we must fight. Issei sighed and picked up the girl. Issei. I've never heard such a stupid reason for fighting. I'm not a vessel for the thing that lives inside me. Besides, we don't even talk much and I don't care what it's done. So, if you're looking for a fight, go to the alleys. There are plenty of idiots like you there. Maybe you'll find some. Issei turned around and the man drew a sword, attempting to pierce Issei's chest. Issei simply turned, caught the sword with one hand, glanced at the man, and destroyed it. Man. Well, I expected nothing less from Arai. Before he could finish, Issei punched him in the face with his free hand, sending him flying several meters and leaving a hole in the wall where his body had passed through. Issei. Imbecile. Issei left the guild, but the man was outside with an angry look. He took off his shirt, revealing a kind of blue gem on his chest. The man got into a fighting stance and Issei simply set the girl down. Issei. Give me a few seconds, I won't be long. Issei slowly approached the man, who then began his attacks. Issei simply moved, but was surprised to see that after one attack, the man's arm seemed to acquire some kind of metal, and another blue gem appeared in the center of his hand. The man struck him with that hand, but Issei didn't flinch. He grabbed the man's arm and punched him in the face again, then knocked him to the ground and stepped on his face. The man growled and freed himself from Issei's grip. Man. Are you mocking me? Issei spat in his face, and the man, disgusted, wiped away the saliva. His face contorted with fury, and his body was enveloped in winged armor. The armor was mostly white, but the wings were blue and resembled dripping waterfalls. The man rose into the air and charged at Issei. Instead of moving, Issei grabbed his attacker by the shoulders, halting his momentum. After a few seconds, the man stepped back and a beam shot from his hand, aimed at the girl. Issei caught her in his arms and shielded her from the attack, taking the blow himself. The man moved closer, hoping to capitalize, but Issei stood up and, without letting go of the girl, punched him in the face, shattering the helmet of the armor and sending drops of blood flying. Issei glared at him angrily and the man got up, wiping some of the blood off. He went after Issei again, but Issei kicked him in the stomach, then grabbed him by the neck and threw him against a wall. The man fell defeated, but Issei he didn't stop. Without turning to look at him, he created a fire spear, set the girl on the ground, and walked slowly toward him. Issei. It seems we were destined to hate each other. Don't worry, I'll pierce your heart quickly. Issei tried to plunge the spear into his heart, but the armor reappeared and stopped it with one hand. Issei felt a surge of power, so he dispelled his weapon and punched the armor in the chest, hoping to cause some damage, but it remained unharmed. Issei. How strange. Instead of speaking, Issei received a kick to the stomach that sent him stumbling back a few steps, followed by several faster and stronger blows. Issei was surprised by the change, but he seized the moment and, in one of his attacks, caught his opponent's fist followed by his other hand. Issei stood up and, without releasing his grip, spat fire from his mouth, revealing his iconic flaming form. The man stumbled back and his helmet disintegrated, showing that he was unconscious. Issei. What the hell? Issei tried to remember and succeeded. In one of his very few and rare conversations with Drake had told him that in case of emergency, if he were left unconscious and weak in a fight, Drake would take control of him to continue fighting, enhancing his abilities. Issei. So that's how I protect him. The armor flew toward him, but Issei jumped and created a chain, managing to grab it by the neck. When it fell, he kicked it in the spine with both feet. The armor fell to the ground and Issei turned it over and ripped the sphere off with one hand. The man began to bleed from the mouth and Issei placed the sphere aside and then stepped on it, causing it to explode slightly. Issei looked at the man and grabbed him by the hair, then dragged him away. Girl. Are you going to do something bad? Issei. I'm just going to end his suffering. Girl. That's bad. Mother told me I should never hurt people. Issei. And she's right, hurting good people is wrong, but I don't see the problem with hurting bad people. Girl. So you've always been good because I've never seen you get hurt. Issei stood still at the girl's words and began to vaguely recall all the times he had fallen while training with his teachers and when he was kidnapped, something he couldn't quite remember, but with Akatsuki's help, he could recall it a little better. He looked at the ground and noticed the man was still unconscious, then felt the girl cling to his leg. Girl. Have you ever been hurt? Issei. Yes, and thanks to that, I became stronger and became who I am. Girl. And why not give them a second chance? Issei looked at the man for a second and let go of him. He picked up the girl and then looked at the man for a few seconds. Issei. Not everyone deserves a second chance. Girl. My mom and I got one when we found you, so I don't see why not. Issei. I thought she couldn't talk, but now it turns out she's a great person and knows how to convince someone. Issei looked into the girl's eyes and she looked back. Issei sighed and let the man live. Issei. But this will be the last time. Girl. If I'm here, I don't think so. Shall we go home now? Issei. Yes, let's go. The girl climbed back onto Issei's shoulders and he walked toward his house. When they arrived, he put the girl down and she ran into her mother's arms. Sina. Is something wrong? You look strange. Issei. Well, a certain little person convinced me of something no one else could. Dakara. Did you do something wrong, honey? Girl. I stopped Issei from killing someone. At this, Sina spat out her coffee and Auden stared at Issei seriously. Auden. Were you going to kill someone in front of her? Issei. I was just going to tell her to turn around. Auden didn't take his eyes off Issei and Issei just sighed. Issei. But I didn't. She made me see things from a different perspective. Sina. So you'll stop killing. Issei. Only when she's here. Otherwise, I will. The little girl smiled and her mother simply patted her head. Days passed and one day Issei was alone. Sina had gone to visit her family, Auden had left on an important mission, and Takara had gone out with her daughter since Issei had given them some money to buy new clothes. He was completely alone in his house when he heard a knock at the door. He thought it was Takara and her daughter, but when he opened it, a staff struck him squarely in the stomach. Issei took the full force of the blow but withstood it and looked ahead, seeing Sun Wukong. Issei. What are you doing here? Sun. Eliminating a threat. Issei tried to grab him by the hair, but he ducked and a white fist struck him in the face, sending him stumbling backward. Son. By the way, it was a good idea to bring a friend. Issei. I thought you'd understand when I let you live. The man didn't respond and simply activated his armor. Sun attacked with his staff, but Issei caught it with his right hand and blocked the Sekiryuutei's attack with his left. Sun lifted one foot and struck his staff from above, breaking free from Issei's grip. Without letting go, he spun around and, using the momentum, tried to strike Issei in the face, but Issei ducked. At that moment, he saw a knee approaching his face, so he caught it with his free hand, noticing it was the Sekiryuutei. He stood up and threw him at Sun, but Sun jumped and put a hand to his head before landing on his feet in front of Issei. They stared at each other and Sun began his attack from a distance. Issei blocked the blows with his forearms or responded by kicking the staff, which Sun used to his advantage, gaining more momentum to strike harder. At one point, Issei began walking toward him, raising his arm slightly, allowing the staff to strike him in the ribs, but he moved aside and Sun tried to pull himself free, but Issei snatched the weapon from his hands and attempted to punch him directly in the face. Sun dodged and, using some dirty grabbed as he ducked, blinded Issei and struck him in the face. The Sekiryuutei arrived and, with a powerful charge, destroyed the wall of Issei's room, forcing them to the back. Issei got up but was punched in the face. Enraged, he grabbed Issei's face and ripped off his mask. Issei immediately created another mask and blocked an incoming blow with both forearms. Issei didn't stop short and, with his other fist, punched Issei in the stomach, sending him flying several meters. Sun appeared on the scene from the roof of his house, leaped, used the momentum, and spun around to gain more speed, attempting to strike Issei in the head. Issei ducked and covered the impact zone with his hands. Then, pushing the staff upwards, Sun released it and tried to kick Issei in the chest, which Issei intercepted. Issei pulled him closer, but Sun raised his other foot and braced himself against Issei's chest, performing a backflip and landing on his feet. He tried to punch Issei, but Issei blocked the blow with one hand and then struck him in the chest with an open hand, knocking him to the ground. Issei. He knows how to fight, he's not stupid. Sun placed his hands on the ground behind him and jumped slightly, landing on his feet in front of Issei. Issei was about to retaliate, but the Sekiryuutei threw a tree at him, sending him crashing into the wall of his house. Issei shook his head slightly, but the Sekiryuutei quickly moved towards him, trying to capitalize and launch another attack. Issei moved, and the Sekiryuutei destroyed the wall and fell painfully to the ground in the street. By this time, people had already witnessed part of the commotion and were moving away. Issei quickly ran towards him while Sun grabbed his staff and followed. Issei grabbed his rival by one wing, lifted him up, and then slammed him face first into the ground and kicked him. Sun arrived at that moment, twirled the staff several times above his head, and turned his back on Issei. Issei tried to take advantage, but Sun kicked Issei's leg, the one closest to him, sending him to one knee. Issei passed his staff between his armpit and ribs, striking Issei directly in the face. Issei stood up, and Sun did the same. He glared at him and began to strike him rapidly with the staff, hitting various parts of his body. After about 6 or 7 attacks, blue flames appeared on Issei's body and he grabbed the staff, pulled it, and slammed his forehead into Sun's face, sending him reeling backward. Sun got back to his feet and tried to attack Issei with his fists, but Issei blocked them from all directions. After blocking a flurry of blows, Issei caught one of Sun's arms with his left hand. Sun tried to break free, but Issei slapped him, irritating his left cheek with the fire and force of his hand. Sun became enraged and grabbed his staff, then pointed it at him. Sun. Want to get serious? Issei didn't answer and shoved him with one hand. Sun. You son of a bitch. Sun smiled and threw the spinning staff at him. Issei blocked it and the staff spun around before returning to Issei's back. Issei noticed and ducked. Sun placed one foot on his bent knee and struck Issei in the face with his other knee. He caught the staff in midair and spun forward, then slammed it into Issei's head with considerable force, burying it in the ground. Sun used his foot to dig Issei's face out and urged him to his feet. Issei placed a hand on his foot and threw it against a house wall. He glared at him angrily and Issei got up, somewhat dazed. A chain formed in his hand and he threw it at Sun to grab him, but the Sekiryuutei caught it with one hand and took flight. Issei didn't let go, waiting for Sun to return, and he did. Issei dodged his opponent's attack and then created a kind of Issei through boomerang, but with iron points and sharp spikes. It pierced his chest, sending both of them plummeting to the ground. Issei created a magic circle beneath him, causing him to descend slowly. The three of them were in the middle of the city. Issei stared at the two in front of him and was surprised to see Sun attack the Sekiryuutei with his staff, leaving him weakened on the ground. Sun. I was an idiot to form an alliance with you. You're weak. That means the other members need to train hard so they don't end up at such a mediocre level as yours. Sun grabbed him by the chin and then finished him off with a punch to the face, knocking him out. Sun. By the way, you're out. Sun leaned on his staff and then looked at Issei seriously. Sun. As for you, I still consider you a threat, but I'm not ready yet. I must continue training. Issei. You're strong and your intentions to protect your home are good and I admire them, so you can go. Sun smiled slightly and then shook his head. Sun. You're truly beyond help. I won't attack you so recklessly anymore unless you represent or threaten the earth. If you do, rest assured I'll be strong enough to stop you. Issei looked at him seriously, still ablaze with flames, and a fire staff formed in his hands. Issei. This will be more useful to you. Sun. I prefer to keep mine. It's more special. Sun retreated through a magic circle and Issei looked at the Sekiryuutei on the ground. He grabbed him by the hair and created a fire dagger. He was about to slit his throat when he felt a light body on his shoulders. He closed his eyes and sighed, knowing who it was, especially when he heard her voice. Girl. What are you doing? Issei. Ah, nothing. I was just checking to make sure you were alright. Girl. Why is the house destroyed? Issei. It's not completely destroyed, just my room and the wall. I won't take long to fix it. Girl. Well, I bought a lot of clothes, thank you for everything. The girl hugged his head and Issei reluctantly put the Sekiryuutei down on the floor. He stood up and asked her what she had bought, but the girl answered him with a question. Girl. Now that you're taking care of me, what are you? Issei. What do you mean, what am I? Girl. Are you my dad or my brother, maybe my grandfather? Issei. Well, I'm a friend. Girl. Oh, I don't like that you're my friend. Issei. Do you dislike me? Girl. No, but the relationship between a friend isn't as strong as that between a father and his daughter, or a brother or grandfather. Issei. That depends. There are friends who become family. Girl. By the way, will we ever meet your family? Issei swallowed at the question and Takara was about to speak, but Issei spoke first. Issei. It's kind of complicated. For now, you guys are my family. Girl. So you are my dad. Takara blushed slightly, but Issei just smiled. Issei. If you want to call me that, fine, but the situation is more complicated. The girl smiled and together with Takara, they returned to the house. Girl. Right, if you're my dad, then I should have a name. Issei looked at Takara and she just smiled calmly at him. Issei. I think that's something your mother should take care of. Girl. Well, as long as you call me whatever mom calls me. Issei. Of course, no problem. Issei put the girl down and began rebuilding his room, where Auden and Sina were currently staying. He finished after a few hours and proceeded to rebuild the wall. When he finished, he noticed it was night, but the others had arrived a few hours earlier. Issei wiped the sweat from his forehead and began washing his shirt. Human world, Pendragon Castle. Sun arrived at the castle slightly injured, nothing too serious, but he seemed annoyed and more than anything, surprised. He knew Issei, or as they called him, the demon of Purgatory, was strong, but he also knew that if he had taken things seriously, he wouldn't have been able to put up a fight. He left his staff beside his room when a man with blonde hair and green eyes arrived. He had a short blonde beard and fair skin without any scratches or wounds. He approached Sun, who simply sighed. Pendragon. How did it go? Sun. Badly. Pendragon. And the Sekiryuutei? Sun. It was a terrible idea, just like you said. Pendragon. At least you thought about it. You almost never listen to me, even though I'm your advisor. Sun. Well, speaking of advice, any good places to train? Pendragon. If you want to improve your abilities, you should go to Germany. Part of our clan is there. Sun. I know that, but what's so special about it? Pendragon. They have the power lagoon. If he trains in the lagoon, there's a high probability of increasing his magical power, and if he has the necessary power, he could even modify his precious staff. Sun. I feel like that. Pendragon. Maybe so, but it should have improvements, perhaps one made of iron. Sun. The wood of this staff was carved by the monkey god himself. There's no iron or metal stronger than this wood. Pendragon. Well, from what I can see, the demon of Purgatory is quite resilient. Son. Well, obviously, he could also be considered a god, but he's a demon. Endragon. If he knows what we're up against, then he should know that if there's a demon capable of fighting gods and defeating them, then he must cease to be a mere heir successor. Son. What are you talking about? Endragon. You must become the monkey god, not just a mere heir to his power. You have great potential, so it would be best if you stopped relying so much on that special staff and started relying more on yourself. We'll talk about the staff later. Son simply lowered his head and Pendragon sat beside him. Endragon. Do you want me to pack? Son. It won't be a journey by land. It will serve as a starting point. Endragon. In any case, it would be best if you left early tomorrow. Get as much rest as you can. Endragon left the room and Son lay down on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Son. A demon capable of killing gods. Son briefly recalled how Issei had fought Michael and how he had left the poor representative of the heavens. He sighed wearily and then opened his eyes. Son. I am the heir to the monkey god's power. That doesn't mean I should simply attain his power. I must surpass him and become the strongest of all time. Son grabbed his staff and covered it with a cloth, lay down on his bed and went to sleep to mentally prepare himself for his journey. Journey to the Vampire HQ. A month had passed since Issei and Son's battle with Sekiryuutei. Since then, Issei had been living peacefully with his partner Auden and the others. Right now, he was with the Guardian of the Dragons, meditating peacefully while the souls of several dragons slept between his legs, head, or on his shoulders. A large circle even formed around him. The reason for this was that he had discovered something he didn't know he could do. One day, he was channeling his demonic power to light a simple piece of wood and start cooking when he noticed the flame spiraling up his arm, over his clothes, until it reached his shoulder. Issei was surprised, but when he stopped using his power, the flame was still there. He put his arm in water, but it didn't go out, so he decided to try to hold it with his other hand. As silly as it sounded, he managed to hold the flame with his other hand, and it quickly disappeared when he released it from his arm. Issei. What was that supposed to be? It didn't look like a weapon or anything. Issei slowly opened his eyes and noticed that his body was completely engulfed in flames, as were the souls of the dragons who were still peacefully asleep. Issei looked at his arms and noticed the same flame present, so he asked the Guardian to look at him. Guardian. Well, it seems you have a flame running through your entire body. Issei. Why? Guardian. I understand that your power is constantly increasing, even if you don't want it to. Issei. Yes, that's true. Guardian. Perhaps you produce much more power than your demonic body is capable of handling. Issei. And this would be a way to release it. It bothers me that nothing extinguishes it. Guardian. You should learn to channel it or ask someone to take some. Issei. I don't know anyone who has enough magical power to take mine, or who would want to. Guardian. And why don't you tell the vampire woman who lives with you? Issei. I don't understand that the maidens of the Teeps clan, and in her case, being the representative, can only drink blood from very important people, like their husbands or their parents, who are the ones they learn from. Guardian. But she's attracted to you, isn't she? Issei. Yes, but I don't intend to ask her that. It's something private for her. Guardian. Then start training. It will be difficult. Issei continued meditating for several hours, and the fire calmed down a little but didn't go out. Now desperate, he got up and said goodbye to return to his world. He went home somewhat grumpy from all the attention he was receiving, and when he entered, everyone stared at him. Ina, Takara's daughter that was her name, now ran into his arms, but unfortunately for her, Issei stopped her. Issei. I'm sorry, I don't know if this flame could hurt you, so I won't be able to carry you today. Ina simply took hold of a finger that wasn't affected by the flame and continued walking with him. Issei noticed they were watching him and sighed. Issei. My body has been producing more power than it can handle. These are the consequences. Auden. You won't be able to sit down. It's a good thing the fire doesn't reach your feet or the floor would be burning. Takara. Maybe I could help you. Issei. Really? Takara. Well, I would just have to take some of its power with my horn and then release it. Issei. Sounds good. Takara. Except I haven't quite mastered my powers yet and I could hurt someone or get hurt myself. I'm sorry. But I'll practice in case I need it in the future. Saina. I could, but she's interrupted. Issei. I know that the maidens of your clan can only absorb the blood and therefore demonic power of people important to them. Don't worry, I'll just sleep outside and continue meditating. Saina began to think and then gave a cheerful smile. Saina. There's a way. Issei turned to look at her and she carefully took his hand so as not to burn him. She led him to Auden's room under her watchful gaze. Minutes passed and Auden began to get impatient before seeing them both come out. Issei was wearing the same outfit he had worn on the day of the raiding game, while Sina wore a red dress, the same color as her eyes with golden touches, and slippers. Auden. Where are you going? Sina. Oh, to Teep's castle. It's been a while since I've been there. Auden. Issei. Issei. What? She decided. Auden. And you both changed in the same room? Sina. Don't worry, I made sure he didn't turn around. Auden. I worry more about you. Sina didn't answer and took Issei's hand again before disappearing in a magic circle. Takara. Hey, are you alright? Auden sighed and decided to play with Ina while Takara washed Sina's and her clothes. Teep's castle. They both appeared at the castle entrance and the guards, who were high-class vampires, quickly came to greet Sina. She responded politely. Then they looked at Issei, but he didn't look at them. Guard. Excuse me, Sina-sama, but is she your partner? Issei remained silent and Sina told them yes. Issei didn't say anything about it. He just glanced at her and noticed she was somewhat nervous. The guards quickly began to lecture him until they annoyed him. Issei. If anyone's going to set rules for me to date her, it'll be her family, not some weak vampires. Sina was surprised by the comment and a slight blush appeared on her face. The guards remained completely silent, knowing who she was, and let them continue on their way. Sina. Wow, I thought you wouldn't play along. Issei continued walking hand in hand with Sina but didn't respond. Sina thought he was annoyed, though Issei looked at her with concern but remained silent. Along their path, they encountered servants and troops from their army. Sina explained to a rather serious Issei that the vampires hadn't been significantly affected by the war of the three factions. In fact, their population had only decreased by 5 or 6% compared to the other races. Before entering the room, Sina stopped and looked at Issei. Sina. I may have upset you, but if you want my help, I must first ask my parents for permission. It's tradition. Issei. We'll discuss this in private. Sina. Yes. Sina lowered her head, but Issei took hold of her chin and lifted it. Issei. Never lower your head. Sina sighed and entered with Issei. He opened the door for her and she saw a couple. The man was dressed much more elegantly than Sina and had quite a few gray hairs. His partner was a woman with black hair, like Sina's, but with black eyes. Her skin was white, like her husband's, and she wore several gold bracelets on her right wrist. The man looked at Issei with his red eyes and saw that he was holding his daughter's hand. He stood up and extended his hand toward Issei, who gently accepted the gesture. Meanwhile, Sina's mother stood up and approached her daughter, whispering something in her ear. Hiramasa. I'm Hiramasa Teeps. Please, sit down. Issei sat next to Sina, facing her parents. Issei. Hi to Issei, ma'am. Issei extended his hand toward Hiramasa's wife and she gently took it. Aratani. Aratani Teeps, it's a pleasure. Hiramasa. Well, I can see you're a polite person. Issei. When am I supposed to be? Sina smiled friendly at Issei before turning to her mother. Hiramasa. And I see you're my daughter's boyfriend. Issei. That's correct, sir. Hiramasa. How long have you been together? Issei. A year and a few months. Hiramasa. I didn't think the demon of Purgatory was my daughter's boyfriend. Issei. Call me Issei or Haidu. I feel like the nickname is a bit much. Hiramasa. I don't think so. If what I've heard is true, you're a strong and ruthless person. Issei. If they hurt the people who are important to me, then yes. Aratani. But I heard you were in a relationship with Auden, one of my daughter's friends. Issei. And she's not wrong. Hiramasa. Daughter, did you know that? Sina. Of course I know, I live with him right now and Auden is there. Aratani. And you're okay with that? Sina. Of course, I mean, he's someone who's suffered a lot in his life, so if there are women who make him happy and I'm there, I'm happy too. Hiramasa looked at Issei seriously, trying to intimidate him, but Issei wasn't scared at all. Hiramasa. If you end up having a Issei. A harem? Hiramasa. Exactly, how can I make sure my daughter doesn't get hurt physically or emotionally? Aratani. Because if you wanted to, you could hurt my daughter in many ways. Sina. Mom. Issei. She's right, I could hurt her in many ways similar to or the same as how I was hurt for so long, but I couldn't do that to one of the women who listens to me, helps me every day, and accepts me as I am. You sicko. Both parents looked at Issei and he stood up. Hiramasa did the same and put his hand on Issei's shoulder. Hiramasa. Asking if you can protect her would be foolish. I know what you're capable of. I only ask 3 things. Aratani. First, I hope you make my daughter very happy. Hiramasa. Second, protect her with your life if necessary. Aratani. And that she comes to visit us often, and if you want, you can come too. Hiramasa. That's all. Aratani. Oh, and that when the time comes, you give us many grandchildren. Saina remained still and lowered her head. Hiramasa was trembling slightly, and without letting go of Issei's shoulder, he turned to look at his wife. Hiramasa. Darling. Aratani. Yes. Hiramasa. You're rushing things. Aratani. I'm talking about the future. Don't be so jealous of your daughter, darling. Hiramasa. I'm not jealous, I'm protective. Issei chuckled softly at the couple's comments and took Saina's hand. After the interrogation ended, they continued talking and even ate together. Aratani insisted so much that they stayed at the castle for the night. The two were in a room when Saina grabbed his arm. Saina. Thank you for acting this way. I know I bothered you, but I had to. If I bothered you, that's fine, but I hope you'll forgive me, please. She was interrupted. Issei took her by the shoulders and again lifted her face with a finger so she would look him in the eyes. She thought she was going to say something, but her sister was incredible when she felt Issei's lips kiss hers. At first, she thought about pulling away, but after a few seconds, she hugged Issei under his arms and placed both hands on his back. Tears welled in her eyes. Issei pulled away from her and she pressed her face to his chest. Saina. You shouldn't have done it out of obligation. Issei. I didn't do it out of obligation, Saina. I know you thought I was upset or angry with you, but no, I didn't know how to react since I didn't think you'd say that. But you know what? To hell with it. You've listened to me when I've been alone, when the others were asleep you were by my side and you worried so much about me, even though I haven't done anything for you. I never thought in my life that this would happen, that such wonderful people as you would be in my life. Thank you. Saina looked up and Issei took her hand and placed it on his cheek. Issei. I love you, Saina Teeps, and I want you to be my wife. Lemon skipped. The couple continued making love for the rest of the night. The next day. Saina left the room with a big smile on her face. Issei, on the other hand, came out yawning in his usual clothes. He stretched a little, only to feel a great weight on his back and see Saina smiling at him. She kissed him, then got down and took his hand. Saina. Let's go. Saina created a magic circle, and both she and Issei disappeared before the watchful eyes of Saina's parents, who smiled. When they arrived home, Auden noticed they were holding hands, and before jumping to conclusions, he decided to ask. Saina. Not if it's what you think, Auden, but I'm officially Issei's girlfriend now. Saina smiled, and Auden remained silent for a few seconds. Issei, meanwhile, went to play with Ina, while Takara watched. Saina. Well, now that we're both Issei's girlfriend, I claim the weekends to do it with him. Auden. What are you talking about? You haven't been together very long. Saina. Oh, poor Auden-chan, he confessed to me with a deep and passionate kiss that went way too far. It was incredible. I almost thought I wouldn't be able to walk today, though I did have to use some healing poultice for the pain. Auden grabbed her shoulders and then looked her in the eyes. Auden. You're joking, right? Saina. Of course not, ask him if you want. Auden went towards Issei, who was carrying Ina, so Auden put her down and took him to his room where the three of them were. Issei was just about to ask what had happened when he saw Auden's serious expression. Auden. Did you already do it with her? Issei. Yes. Auden. It took us 6 months and she did it the same day you confessed. Issei. Don't shout. First of all, regardless of how long it took, I would have done it, and second, I thought you were already okay with it. Auden. Yes, I am, but I didn't think I'd have to share you so quickly in such an intimate way. Issei. Hey, calm down, we just shouldn't cause any more trouble. Saina. She's right, but for this week I should sleep with him to suck his blood, otherwise his power could cause enormous damage. Auden. Rot in hell. Saina just laughed along with Issei at the comment, and Auden resigned himself and decided to take it in stride. The three of them left, and Issei said goodbye to them, since he didn't want to depend solely on Saina to control his power. He left his house and went to meditate again, only this time he was in the mountains where the soldiers trained. Right now, they seemed to be on a mission, so no one would bother him at any point. He went to a small lake a few meters below their base. Despite that, the water wasn't frozen, but it was very cold. Issei took off his shirt and pants so they wouldn't get wet, grabbed several stones, and placed them in the center of the small lake to sit down and close his eyes. After a few seconds, the flames appeared again, and Issei tried to stop them. Everything was going well, and he felt the fire less and less, as if it were going out, when suddenly he felt a sharp pain in his chest. He tried to get up, but he lacked the strength and fell into the lake. He could see a small flame in his chest seem to slowly fade until it disappeared, and Issei lost consciousness. 2 hours later. Issei awoke suddenly and noticed he was just a few meters from the lake. He quickly realized there was no water in the water, so he thought someone had pulled him out, but he couldn't confirm it. Issei. Ah, I'll have to ask the dragon, Dreg. Dreg. I didn't pull you out. Issei. Then who did? Dreg. You did. I thought you had regained control. That fire reappeared and surrounded your body. You stood up and climbed out of the lake, then lay down on the ground as if nothing had happened. Issei. Issei placed a hand on his chest and took a deep breath. The fire reappeared, but instead of surrounding him, a spark leaped out and a sentence formed on the ground. Issei. We are protecting you. What the hell? Another spark leaped out and the sentence vanished, replaced by a new one. Issei. We are not a force your body cannot withstand. We are protecting you from imminent danger. The sentence vanished again and a symbol appeared on the ground next to another sentence. Issei. A portal will open from the sky, unleashing chaos and destruction. It is up to you to stop it. As he finished reading, the fire formed a kind of image or video in the sky. In it, a large black hole opened in the sky and a beast emerged from it. At that moment, the fire returned to the ground. Issei. But we cannot allow you to die. That is why we are protecting you. And who are you supposed to be? An image formed on the ground and a silhouette could be seen. Issei tried to recognize it for a few seconds until he guessed correctly. Issei. That's me. This is ridiculous. The fire startled and merged with Issei once more. Armor isn't enough. We will protect you. We are the power and heat emanating from your body. Issei. So it has a life of its own too. Greg. I'd say it's more of a precautionary measure. All of this has been here for a long time. It's a kind of encrypted message. Issei. And you never told me. Greg. If you die, it'll be better for me. Issei sighed and noticed the fire had faded. Issei. Then I guess I can't undo it. Well, I just hope it doesn't interfere with anything important. Issei lay on the ground, covered in deep wounds that were slowly beginning to heal, gazing at the red sky of Purgatory. Beside him, a three-headed beast rested, defeated and bearing far more injuries than Issei, but these had already healed. He noticed souls passing by, but paid them little heed. The battle he had just endured had shown him that no matter how much power he possessed, there was always something or someone that could put up a good fight, or even defeat him, which wasn't the case here. But the reason for the fight had been rather foolish, he had to admit. It had been a long time since he'd fought like this, and he felt a great frustration that he wanted to release. 5 hours ago. Issei was at home watching Ina play while deciding to expand his bedroom. Despite his best efforts to convince Auden and Sina to create a separate room, they insisted on sleeping with him. So, he was currently remodeling, but he felt a great deal of frustration. He loved his peaceful life, but at the same time, he was deeply disappointed that nothing seemed to be happening. He worked and lived quite well, but all the problems were solved by the well-trained troops. As much as he longed to take action from time to time, he knew that would only bring imminent danger to Asgard. On one hand, he was fascinated by the idea of other races or clans coming to challenge them and prove who he was or what he was capable of, but on the other hand, he wasn't foolish enough to endanger the people of Asgard, so he decided to hold back. He sighed heavily in his chair, reminiscing about his old days traversing the human world, learning all sorts of techniques. He knew the human world, not just the demonic realm, heaven, and so on, were dangerous places, but now, after so much time, they no longer posed a threat to him. He'd reached a point he never imagined. He was completely desperate for a catastrophe. It might sound crazy, but he was a fighter, someone who fought for what he wanted. But when people crumbled at the mere sight of you, all your hard work was for nothing. He knew he'd earned their respect, but he wanted at least someone who didn't give a damn about what he'd done and would challenge him. It had happened before, but they were idiots who'd be knocked out with a single blow. He wanted a rival, someone truly strong who could put him in a tight spot, but it never happened. His days were becoming increasingly routine and boring. Taking care of Ina, cooking, exercising and training with the troops, returning home and making dinner, reading, or sometimes going to the markets with everyone, then returning home and sleeping. He couldn't be more grateful to have a family now that supported his decisions, but he also wanted to do something. He knew that Sina and Auden sometimes went out to resolve conflicts and came back exhausted because they had fought with several guys and blah blah blah. The truth is, just hearing that made him a little tense. I mean, his partners fought much more than he did these days. He had planned to enter the raiding games, but he had to belong to a clan, so no way. His whole life was falling apart because of a simple, boring, and routine existence. Until today. Issei. To hell with it. Issei threw his hammer at a nearby table and stood up. Ina looked at him curiously but continued playing. Issei. Takara, I'll be back in a while. If anything happens, just call me using a magic circle. Oh, she'd also been practicing with Takara to make magic circles, since there were times when she was alone. She'd also go out, and sometimes the others would be left alone, but to be honest, of the three of them, she was the least skilled at fighting at the moment, but she was learning thanks to Issei and Aden. Issei disappeared through a magic circle and arrived in Purgatory. Akatsuki. What are you doing here, Issei? Issei. I need your help. I can't stand this. Akatsuki. What? Issei told her what had happened, and Akatsuki looked at him strangely, but she understood to some extent how boring a life like the one he'd been living lately could be. Akatsuki. Well, I don't really know how I could help you. I mean, maybe your power allows you to touch the souls here, but if you hit them, they'll vanish. Issei. Damn it. Issei slammed his fist into the ground, and the place shook. His muscles trembled, and Akatsuki patted him on the head. Akatsuki. Calm down, hey. You need to relax a little. Issei. I've been relaxing for a long time already. Akatsuki thought and thought until she came up with a brilliant idea. Akatsuki. Maybe there is something you can fight. Issei looked at her happily and asked who. Akatsuki. Good. Go to the entrance of Purgatory. The three-headed hellhound is a worthy opponent. I had to defeat it to become the ruler of Purgatory, and I was unconscious for a week. Issei. Perfect. Issei turned around but stopped. Issei. Wait, if I defeat it, will I be the ruler of Purgatory? Akatsuki. Not exactly. Before me, the previous leader or master of Purgatory had died long ago, and to take his place, I defeated the Hellhound. Since there was no one else, I was automatically given the power and responsibilities that come with it. If you defeat him and want the position, then you should fight me. Issei. No thanks, the nickname is enough for me. Akatsuki. Fine then, good luck. Issei walked quickly toward the entrance of Purgatory and saw it. A majestic three-headed hellhound. From its mouths, a river of blood flowed, and its eyes surveyed everything around it. Its enormous claws could easily pierce 30 people lined up, in addition to its fangs. Its fur looked quite abundant, but something else that stood out was the lines around its body from which blood flowed. He didn't know if it was the monster's own blood or some kind of hallucination meant to intimidate him. Issei walked toward it, and the dog stared at him. After all, it recognized his scent. Issei. Alright, time to start. Issei threw a nearby rock at the dog's eye, but it disintegrated before reaching it. The dog began to growl. Meanwhile, Issei's eyes sharpened like a reptile's, and skeletal wings surrounded by fire, along with a tail, appeared. He flew and positioned himself in front of the three heads, very close. He could feel their breathing and decided to start gently. He gave the dog a light tap on the nose, one of its most sensitive areas, and the dog shuddered, only to turn and growl seconds later. The dog used one of its paws and struck Issei, burying him in the ground. It then bit him and began to shake him like a rag doll before tossing him into the air. Fire began to erupt from its mouth, but Issei created a fire spear that absorbed all the flames and fired at it. The dog took the full force of the impact but remained unfazed. On the contrary, a river of blood began to flow faster and faster from its mouth. Issei grinned and lunged at it, only to be struck by one of its heads, which sent him flying several meters back. He quickly recovered and, with a spear, drew a chain and a circle around it. He passed his hand through the circle, and upon seeing the creature, several identical circles appeared on all its paws and heads. When he withdrew his hand, a chain of fire shot out along with him and ensnared the dog. Issei flew swiftly into the sky, but after a few seconds, he released the dog. It plummeted down, as did Issei, who had hoped to slam it into the ground, but unfortunately for him, the dog fell. Standing up, and with a shield created from flames that came out of his mouth, Issei fell to the ground, still standing. They looked at each other, but from the dog's mouth came a kind of bloody soul. These ran towards Issei, but he destroyed them all with a single blow. At that moment, the dog charged at him, but Issei punched it squarely in the face. The force of the impact lifted its rear end and spun around, landing on its back behind Issei. Issei noticed his wrist twisted slightly, but he simply straightened it. He turned to face his opponent, who was growling as he looked at him. Issei did nothing more than try to strike, but the dog hit him with another of its heads, sending him flying. This time he didn't land on his feet, but it didn't matter much since he got up quickly. The dog let out a loud bark that made him close his eyes. When he opened them, the animal was running towards him. Issei waited a few seconds and created a sword of fire with which he tried to cut off its head, but he missed his attack because the animal stopped in front of him and he struck with his tail. Issei began to get a little more excited and the sword disappeared from his hands. He stared at it intently and created a whip of fire. He jumped a little to gain momentum and fly faster, then swooped down and lashed it across the back. The dog couldn't defend itself. Despite jumping and trying to eat Issei, it couldn't. After several blows, Issei dispelled the whip and created a mace of fire with which he struck the dog squarely on the head, knocking it to the ground. Then he fell and grabbed it by one of its paws, lifting it up to slam it against the ground about 3 times. After that, he rose up and, forming a spiral of fire around himself, swooped down, striking the animal in the stomach. For a second, he swore he saw it pierce its stomach, but one of its heads managed to trap him in its mouth and was gnawing at him. After a few seconds, it spat him out and Issei felt very tired. Issei. What did this dog do? The hellhound looked at Issei, and its eyes began to burn with flames, as did the lines from which blood had previously flowed. Issei stared in surprise, though he didn't have much time to react. Just a second later, the dog transformed into a fireball that rammed into him, sending him flying about 100 meters. As he landed, Issei shook himself off and felt it charging at him again. Issei. Come on, you bastard, I'll stop you. Issei placed his hands on the ground and began running toward the fireball. When he was close enough, he opened his arms and caught it despite its great speed. After a few seconds, the fireball dissipated, revealing the hellhound. Issei released it, and it tried to bite him again, but Issei threw an axe that pierced part of its chest. Issei then noticed it healing rapidly. Issei. Good, so he can heal himself too. Issei created a pair of fire axes in his hands and used them to slice off one of its claws. The animal roared, and a circle of blood formed around Issei. He flew, but the blood followed him everywhere. After a few seconds, Issei charged at his rival, but just as he was about to strike, a grit of blood stopped him. Issei. What the hell does solidified blood give? He didn't have time to speak again because he was bitten and swallowed alive. Issei was passing through the animal's esophagus when he created another axe and jammed it into its neck to stop himself. Obviously, the animal felt the discomfort and began to tear at its neck with one of its paws. Issei. Don't move, you idiot. With his other hand, Issei created a dagger of fire and made a large opening to try to escape, but there were still more layers of skin and muscle. He continued like this for about 2 minutes until he managed to get out, covered in blood. On one hand, the animal healed quickly, and on the other, Issei flew to its central head and grabbed one of its ears to take flight again. Once there, he released it and quickly created a shape in the sky. A stone surrounded by a circle of fire. Issei passed his fist through it, and a kind of meteorite or enormous rock covered in fire struck the animal until it crashed to the ground, causing a large explosion. Akatsuki. What is he doing now? Akatsuki was watching everything from a tower, sitting down. Although he didn't agree with the idea of his home being some kind of fighting arena, he knew that once the fight was over, the place would automatically repair itself, so he continued watching the battle. Issei returned to Earth and noticed a circle of blood appear in front of him. He tried to destroy it, but couldn't. Instead, a man emerged from it, or at least it looked like a humanoid creature made of blood. For a moment, Issei punched it, but nothing happened. Issei. Doesn't it work? After finishing speaking, the thing struck him, sending him stumbling back 2 steps. He got back up, but received another blow followed by a kick to the stomach. He was about to be hit again when a powerful burst of fire erupted from his hand, obliterating the enemy. Issei walked toward the dog, but noticed it was gone. He found it strange, but then saw a trail of blood and followed it. 2 minutes passed, and he was still following the trail, but stopped when he heard claws hitting the ground. He turned around and was brutally struck by a wave of blood that stopped upon impact and fell to the ground. Issei was sent flying until he crashed into a wall, or rather, shattered it. He got up after a few seconds, having shaken off a bit, and stood up healed. Issei. Did it circle the whole place? The souls just stared at Issei strangely and continued wandering around doing other things. Issei ran toward the dog but stopped when he noticed several circles of blood surrounding him. Issei. Now what? A large amount of blood began to rise from the circles and formed into a huge spear. Issei quickly created a magic circle for protection, but it was useless as the spear destroyed it and pierced his chest. Issei. You son of a bitch. Issei grabbed the enormous spear with both hands and tried to pull it out, but he couldn't. He felt some liquid trickle from his mouth and wiped it away with one hand. Issei. Did it splatter, or is it my blood? Issei kept trying until he noticed the animal slowly circling him. Issei. What? Isn't enough. Issei had had enough and destroyed the spear with one blow. As it disappeared, he began to heal rapidly, and the animal stared at him. Issei. You want to play like this? Issei's wings unconsciously lifted him, his tail pointing towards the ground. Issei. Let's play your way. Issei brought his hands together slightly without touching them, and a tiny flame began to gather between them, glowing with every possible color as it grew larger and rounder. After a few seconds and several attacks from the animal that tried to stop him, the sphere of fire wasn't very large. In fact, it didn't even cover Issei's hands, but he raised it to the sky with a single hand. Issei. Let's see if you can withstand this. Issei plummeted to the ground and, with the same hand he had used to raise the sphere, buried it in the ground. At first, nothing happened, but after a few seconds, the ground began to tremble. The animal charged towards Issei, but a multicolored light appeared in front of him, stopping him. The animal ran back, but another appeared, and then another, and so on until it trapped him in a cage. Issei. Fine, now die. Issei pulled his hand from the ground, and a flash of light, followed by a massive explosion that obliterated everything around him, suddenly appeared. Akatsuki, on one hand, used their power to protect the city and the souls of its inhabitants, closing their eyes against the intense flash. After a few seconds, once the trembling from the powerful explosion had subsided and the light had faded, the dog's skeleton lay on the ground, lifeless. There was nothing left but bones. Issei. Well, it seems you didn't make it. Issei lay down on one of the large bones and then felt fur begin to sprout. He turned and noticed that all the skin, flesh, and organs were reappearing. Issei. Oh, it seems so. I guess it's immortal. Akatsuki dispelled the shield, even though it was practically broken, and looked at the guardian. She appeared in front of Issei and gave him a serious look. Akatsuki. You didn't hold back. Issei. Of course I did, but not as much as the others. This really relieved my stress. Thank you very much. Akatsuki. I'm not going to let you come here and start killing him repeatedly. He may be immortal, but I still won't allow it. Issei. I know, but it was still a good fight, and sorry if I destroyed anything. Akatsuki. It will repair itself. Wow, you really are ruthless. Issei. Well, now maybe I should go back. I'll wait while he regenerates and apologize to him. I don't want us to fight every time he comes. Akatsuki. That would be good. I have things to do. If you need anything, look for me. See you. Akatsuki said goodbye, and a magic circle made her disappear. Present. 5 hours had passed, and Issei got up, seeing that the animal was alright. He quickly apologized and left to return home. Upon arriving, Ina ran to him and jumped into his arms, which Issei caught. Ina. Where did you go? Issei. Just went to de-stress. Issei smiled at her answer and closed the door behind them, going inside to continue his routine. Trihexa. Issei was sleeping peacefully in his bed. After all, everything had been quiet lately. It felt strange, he couldn't deny it, but he enjoyed the tranquility. He had planned to go to the human world and look for the headquarters where the hero faction, which was constantly growing in membership, trained and stayed, but that would be for later since today he was going to the underworld. It had been a while since he had been there and he wanted to see how things were going over there. He got up and put on his usual clothes, only this time they were black. There was no one home. Takara had said she wanted to check if the hidden village of her race was still intact and had taken Ina with her. Meanwhile, Auden apparently had to negotiate something important with the dwarven blacksmiths and had left early that morning. Elsewhere in the vampire faction, the Teeps were having trouble with another powerful vampire family. It was more of a political conflict, but his presence was crucial. He would go and see what was happening later, since she was his partner and he couldn't leave her alone. He teleported to the underworld and noticed something strange upon arriving. There was a sort of meeting taking place in the castle's main hall, where several demons, including the mass, were gathered. He didn't know why he had appeared there, but decided to go and see. A1. Ah, hi to Issei, it's good you've come. Issei. Is there a problem? A3. A very big one, if it turns out to be true. Issei. And what is it? A2. A few hours ago, a small, rather distant village was supposed to arrive to settle in the capital, although they were supposed to pass through Gremory territory first, but they haven't arrived. The Gremory family took action, but they haven't arrived either, only Atsushi. Issei. And how is he? A1. Well, it would be best if we went to see him. All the mass stood up as the demons left the room, teleporting themselves through a magic circle to Gremory Castle. They made their way to the room of the current patriarch of the Gremory clan and saw him in his bed with a deep hole that was both healing and rapidly collapsing. Issei approached and noticed that Phoenix tears had been used, so he used his demonic breath, but it healed very slowly. About 20 minutes passed before they managed to heal him. All those present demon servants and members of the clan, like Towers and others, were astonished but also happy, especially his wife, or so it seemed. Issei, somewhat exhausted from having used a great amount of power, swallowed hard, stood up, and looked at him seriously. Issei. Speak. Atsushi. Well, I don't really know much. I suppose you're here because of what attacked us. Issei. Something, more than nothing. Atsushi. I'll describe him. He looked a lot like you, except his head was a skeleton. A purple flame blazed across his body, which was completely bare from the waist up. His skull, if you could even call it that, had incredibly strong, sharp teeth and enormous claws. He was as tall as he was. By the way, he seemed to be some kind of mutated animal, like a dragon, but at the same time, he seemed like something else, a monster. And something I didn't see clearly was a kind of circle on his forehead. Issei didn't know who he was talking about and neither did anyone else in the room. Issei. Did he say anything to you? Atsushi. He mumbled a few words, but I didn't understand him. Maybe it was another language. Issei. We'd need to see what he said. Did any of your men survive? Atsushi. I don't know. He used such a powerful attack that it threw me all the way to another clan's castle. Issei. That's incredible. He's definitely something powerful. I1. Could you go and investigate? Issei. Well, if I already asked for all that, it would be the least I could do. How far from here was it? Atsushi. You leave the castle and fly straight ahead, you'll see its power. The purple flame could be seen from miles away, even though it wasn't that big up close. Issei left and followed Atsushi's instructions. He was curious to know what he was talking about. He flew for an hour at a calm altitude until he saw it. A purple flame standing out among the clouds. He decided to descend and when he arrived, he noticed it was facing away. The description was accurate. It was a skeleton with a purple flame, only this time it was clothed on its torso. He turned to look at it and it appeared to be a dragon because of its elongated mouth, although at the same time it looked like something else. Issei's power surged and black fire appeared. Seeing this, the beast immediately leaped at him and Issei blocked the attack to counter with one of his own. To his surprise, his wrist pierced the beast's body. He tried to pull his fist out, but the beast caught his arm and unleashed a flurry of blows all over his body, weakening him. It was strong, very strong indeed. Issei. Wow, so strong. It doesn't even seem to have any trouble. Issei flew toward the beast, but stopped when he saw it create a purple fire sphere in its hand. He created a shield and the beast appeared before him. He grabbed the shield above him and with his other hand buried the sphere, which created a large blaze, trying to melt him. Issei, on the other hand, dispelled the shield and delivered a powerful blow to its jaw, sending it reeling backward. He took a step forward but fell to the ground. He felt a skeletal creature grab his feet, but he didn't have enough time to react as one of its claws pierced his chest. He was bleeding, but he still managed to break his opponent's arm and got up with a wound. It was strange that he was bleeding, especially in that form. The beast, on the other hand, simply grabbed his arm and returned to normal. Issei became enraged and struck it repeatedly until a single blow to the stomach sent it crashing to its knees. He felt immense pressure but couldn't move despite wanting to. The beast grabbed his head and dragged him along the ground for a few meters until he reached a rock. It was incredibly sharp and threw him against it. Issei put his arms out and managed to get up but received a kick to the stomach that made him fall again. He clutched his stomach with one hand and his tail appeared, as did his claws. He got up, but this time the sphere that had previously impacted his entire chest and sent him flying with a powerful burst of fire. For a few seconds, he stared into nothingness until he recovered in the air and flew back towards him. Before he reached him, the beast's tail pierced his stomach, stopping his flight. It turned and brought Issei close to its face, where it breathed heavily and unearthed its tail, letting out a large amount of blood. Apakadataka Miri na. Issei didn't understand anything, but for a moment he swore he saw a large sphere in the sky darken everything. He looked up and saw the claw delicately grasp his face before piercing his neck. After a few seconds, the beast threw Issei's wounded body to the ground and turned to sit on the rock, continuing to say several things. Issei, on the other hand, began to heal. After a minute, he stood up again, only this time the fire was gone, replaced by his human form with slanted eyes. He glared at it angrily, and the beast got up again listlessly. Amaharatika. Issei said nothing and created a sword of fire alongside an axe. He ran towards the beast and threw the axe. It dodged a weapon, but Issei plunged the sword into its chest and the axe rebounded, burying itself in the back of its skull. It lifted the beast and a great blaze erupted from its fire, engulfing its enormous body. For a few seconds, Issei increased the heat, but it stopped when one of its claws grabbed his face and forcefully closed his mouth. Issei struggled fiercely, but the beast struck him 3 times in the face before slashing him with its tail. Issei blocked the final attack and created a fire spear, which he threw at the beast, striking it in the face. He ran quickly, but with the weapon still embedded in its head, the beast rose, and a wall of fire erupted from the ground, stopping and surrounding him. Issei tried to break through, but the blows held him back. He heard murmurs and saw something appear beneath his feet. He concentrated and I created a circle of fire outside the walls, and from it emerged his flaming horse, which charged the beast, undoing the entire spell. Issei jumped and created a kunai with a chain. The horse disappeared, leaving a trail of fire, and Issei threw the kunai, hitting the beast's back. He spun around in mid-air and pulled the chain to lift the beast, but just as he was about to use more force to throw it to the ground, the beast grabbed his face and stopped him with its own spear, striking him across the face. Issei saw the spear coming and caught it by the fiery edge. He turned, handing the sword to his opponent, and buried the spear in its chest, or so he thought. He looked and saw that it was true, only the beast was still walking toward him. It grabbed his face and slammed him to the ground, spitting a blast of fire from its mouth. For a few seconds, he felt himself fading away, but he got up and grabbed the beast by the neck, squeezing tightly before ripping its limbs in two. Neck and skull, Issei fell to the ground defeated but sighed as he watched the wound heal, as if nothing had happened, and he got up again. Issei. What the hell is that? He's not dead. Issei prepared to fight again, so he ran towards the beast. It ducked and struck him, sending him stumbling back a few meters. Issei fell on his back but quickly got back up, only to see a kind of enormous skeletal dragon charge at him, engulfed in flames. Issei took the full force of the attack but remained standing, this time withstanding the blow. Seconds later, a massive explosion filled the area with smoke. After a few seconds, Issei got up, somewhat dizzy and with bloodstains around his body. He was no longer in his demonic form, but he still possessed much of his power. He grabbed his right arm, only to feel something pierce his abdomen from behind and see a pointed skeletal tail. He grasped it with both hands, but then felt a strong grip on his head and a magic circle appeared beneath his feet. The great beam shot out from it, incinerating both Issei and his opponent, leaving them suspended in midair. They plummeted down until the beast recovered and managed to land on its feet. On the other side, Issei fell straight to the ground. The beast walked toward him and grabbed his head, opening its jaws. Unfortunately for the beast, Issei caught its mouth with both hands and ripped it in two, then threw it to the ground and incinerated everything with a powerful burst of flame. Issei. Ah, I never thought something like this existed. Issei noticed the ashes and decided to go and inform the mass. As he left the area, a skeletal body could be seen slowly forming and moving toward a cave. Issei. I must have used a huge amount of power in that burst of flame. Even my hands are still burning. Issei touched a rock and it instantly turned to ash. He said nothing more and took flight. 10 minutes later. The mass were waiting impatiently until the roof of their castle collapsed and Issei fell onto the central table, injured and quite tired, but he still managed to get up with the mass's help. I won. What happened to you? Issei. I took care of the problem. It wasn't easy. Now 3. It's obvious why I left you like this. Come on, we'll heal you. Issei. I shouldn't go home. My body will heal on its own. I hope, though, that I'll at least get some kind of reward. Issei left the castle and tried to fly again, only to fall to the ground and get up again. Issei. It's better to walk. I'm very tired. Issei walked to his house, opened the door, and everyone stared at him. For a second, it was as if nothing had happened. He went straight to his room, but they stopped him and sat him down on the sofa. Auden. Bring the bottles of phoenix blood and the bandages. Instead of bringing phoenix blood, Sina took out a vial of blood and poured it on Issei's wound, and it began to heal instantly. Auden. It's very effective. What kind of blood is it? Sina. It's Issei's. Sometimes I suck his blood and keep it in case we need it. Auden looked at Sina, who simply continued tending to the wounds. Auden, on the other hand, prepared the bed for him to rest and returned to help carry him. Takara prepared food for when he woke up so he could regain his strength. Issei, meanwhile, simply saw in a blur how he was being manipulated and treated by the others and smiled slightly before falling peacefully asleep. After a few seconds, Issei awoke to a large cloud of smoke. There was no one around, so he thought it was a dream, but then he noticed Dreg inside, sleeping peacefully. He had never seen him sleep, in fact, he hadn't even seen him do much despite living inside him for so long. He approached, and at that moment, the body vanished. He was a little surprised, but a flash of light behind him made him turn around, and he saw the beast. He tried to do something, but it grabbed his head and opened its mouth. Issei hit it, but nothing happened until a kind of seal appeared on his stomach, burning him slightly from the inside. It was 3 numbers, 666, reversed inside a circle. After that, the beast disappeared, and Issei woke up quickly and abruptly. He lifted his garment a little and noticed there was nothing there, so he sighed and lay back down. The next day. A meeting was taking place, the location being heaven, more precisely, in a kind of temple dedicated to Michael. He had learned of the situation and wanted to speak personally with Issei about what had happened. Michael. So something attacked you, a beast. Issei. Yes, and I defended myself. I turned it to ash, but it appeared in my head tonight. Michael said nothing, but he sensed a strong presence of evil power within Issei. He knew he was someone to be feared and respected, but he had never felt power like this before, not because it was so overwhelming, but because of its impure malevolent nature. Contrary to what one might think, not all demons possessed impure magical power. In fact, no being who had committed sins, regardless of their race, possessed it. There were exceptions, like Issei, which is why he wanted to perform a ritual on him, but Issei flatly refused. Michael? Well, thanks for sharing your information. We'll keep an eye on everything in case you need anything. Issei. I should discuss that with the mass. I'll go home. Michael. Before you leave, I'd like you to go to a human temple. It's been corrupted, and I'd like you to eliminate the evil demon that now dwells there and prevents people from entering. Issei. Okay. Issei went to the temple Michael had indicated. Upon arriving, he felt an incredible surge of power. He clenched his fists and punched the air, unleashing a powerful gust of wind that startled the evil demon. The demon had a 6 on its forehead and was also a skeleton, only this one was completely naked and without any protection. Issei said nothing and simply approached it to strike. The skeleton vanished with a single blow, and Issei stared at his fist in surprise. Issei. If Michael is right, there should be an orb of demonic power here. I just need to remove it and replace it with this one. Issei opened a secret door and went to a kind of basement. Inside, there was a red sphere, which Issei destroyed. From a magic circle, he drew a sphere of divine or pure power and felt a sharp pain in his head. He didn't pay much attention to it and placed it where it belonged. A thin line appeared in front of him, pointing in the opposite direction. Issei did nothing more and left, closing the secret entrance. But just then, a flash of red light began to transform the orb of power. Issei returned to hell, but this time, for some reason, he was in a very bad mood. He didn't feel like doing anything at all. He just wanted to get home and sleep, and that's exactly what he did. As soon as he got back home, he didn't greet anyone. He simply lay down on his bed and slept peacefully. So some time passed as Issei exchanged orbs of power, because for some strange reason, more and more temples, not just human ones, were being invaded by demonic power. Issei was starting to tire of it all, but he decided to calm down. Besides, he had a bad feeling about himself, since several times he had seen a red flash appear in his head every time he purified a temple, and each time there were more of them. He couldn't stand it anymore, and in the middle of the night, he left his house and went to each of the temples, noticing that everything was in order. Issei. What's happening to me? Issei tried to grasp the orb, but at that moment he realized it was an illusion. There was nothing there. The room darkened, and a small red flash began to grow larger, until it became black and purple. Issei looked at it and, for some reason, hesitated to touch it. The same symbol from his dreams appeared on his stomach and forehead, and with both hands he covered the flash, which transformed into an orb of power. But it wasn't demonic or divine. It was more powerful. Issei swallowed hard and, for some reason, tried to swallow it, but at that moment a crack opened, and Office emerged. Office? What are you doing? Issei said nothing and quickly swallowed the orb of power. At first, he felt a great burning sensation, but then he noticed that Office's gaze wasn't normal. It expressed fear or something like that. Issei left, while Office followed him. In a puddle of water, he noticed that she had horns on the sides of her head, purple flames, and pointed teeth, in addition to the snout of a dragon. The bones of her abdomen formed the symbol 666 with a circle around it, and it was also on her forehead. Office approached, but Issei abruptly stood up and created a flame in his hand. Issei. It was this power. It was what was calling me. Office. You must come to the dimensional rift now. Office took his hand, but at that moment, a powerful explosion made them both disappear. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.